Good evening. Hello, everybody. We're ready to start. Thank you. I'm going to call the special meeting of the Board of Aldermen to order on Monday, June 8th, 2026 at 7 p.m. in the National High School North Lecture Hall, B166. We also have an overflow area in room C146, which I believe is right next door. Okay, so we're going to have the clerk offer, I'm sorry. The prayer will be offered by the city clerk, and Alderman O'Brien will lead us in the pledge to the flag.
Almighty God, we have the high honor and the serious duty to manage the affairs of our beloved city. Fill us, O God, with a spirit of unity and understanding, which enables us to face our multiple problems with a serene mind, with justice and charity for all, so that any and all decisions made by us will always be for the betterment and greater happiness of all our fellow citizens. So help us God. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let's start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance, please.
Alderman Clemmons. Alderman Clee.
Here.
Alderman Ravan. Alderwoman Smith. Alderman Tebow.
Here.
Alderman O'Brien.
Present.
Alderman Gregg.
Here.
Alderman Dowd. Alderman Sullivan. Alderman Senate.
Here.
Alderman Johnson.
Present.
Alderwoman Kelly.
Here.
Alderman Morgan.
Here.
Alderman Lopez.
Here.
Alderman Wilshire.
Here.
10 present, 5 absent.
Alderman Clemmons was ill, not able to join us this evening. Alderman Dowd was ill and unable to join us this evening. Alderman Clemmons is home taking care of his wife, who is very ill. Also joining us this evening is Mayor Jim Donchis and Corporation Counsel Steve Bolton, and we also have CFO Don Enright. I am now going to turn the budget public hearing over to Vice Chairman Tim Sennett.
Thank you, Madam President. So we are here tonight to hold a public hearing on the fiscal year 2027 budget. Before we begin, I'm going to read off a couple of guidelines. We traditionally do this every year just to facilitate the flow of the public hearing. This evening, you're invited to appear before the Board of Aldermen to ask any questions that you may have regarding the Mayor's proposed fiscal year 2027 city budget. Copies of the budget books have been made available this evening, right outside the door, and the proposed budget is also available online on the city's website. Tonight, the meeting will start by the Mayor providing an overview of his proposed budget to the Aldermen. When he concludes, we will start to go through various city divisions one by one, and you may ask questions on their proposed budget to the division director. You may only ask questions directly involved with the proposed fiscal year 2027 budget. That's the reason for this public hearing tonight. All other subjects may be addressed at regular Board of Aldermen meetings. To be fair to all the members of the public here this evening, we ask that you please try to keep your questions and comments to 5 minutes or less per division. You will not be cut off, but the chair will remind you when 5 minutes has elapsed and will ask if you could please complete your current question. You may only come up once per division, but there may be time at the end of the evening when all divisions are complete to ask additional questions. If your question cannot be answered this evening, you may leave your contact information and a response will be sent to you. Again, after the Mayor has completed his overview, we will proceed through the divisions in the following order. Mayor's Office, including General Government, Public Works and Engineering, Police Department, Fire Department, Public Library, Other Public Safety, Community Development Division, Public Health and Community Services, Education, Financial Services Division, Debt Service Contingency and Interfund Transfers, capital improvements, and administrative services. Now, due to the hour that the board had received these guidelines last week, what I'd like to do at this time is entertain a motion to accept these guidelines as the procedures for the evening. Alderwoman Kelly.
Make a motion to accept the guidelines received at the special board meeting on June 4th.
You've heard the motion. Is there discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? That motion carries. Okay. So at this time, I will open the public hearing at 7:06 p.m., and I will turn it over to Mayor Donches to present an overview of the budget. Oh, actually, I'm going too fast. At this time, I will recognize Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a motion to take from the table 26/028, which is the pending fiscal year 26 budget.
You've heard the motion. Is there discussion? Fiscal 27. Yep. You've heard the motion. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? That motion carries. Now, I will open the public hearing at 7:06 p.m. and turn it over to Mayor Donches to present an overview of his budget.
Thank you, Alderman Sennett. Well, first, I want to thank you all for coming tonight to the annual public hearing on the city budget. The preparation and passing of the city budget is, of course, one of the biggest responsibilities of both the mayor, myself, and the Board of Aldermen, because it sets forth what services we will be providing to our citizens and how much those services are going to cost. And, of course, we are a service organization, so this is basically the main mission of the budgeting and of the Board of Aldermen. And I want to thank those who are here from all of our departments to respond to any questions or comments that members of the public wish to have. I would, before I begin, like to thank our budget team, consisting of Dawn Enright, who's right here, CFO, Tim Cummings, who's the Administrative Services Director, and Megan Karen, Chief of Staff, right down the way. Also, the Budget Committee, led by Alderman Dowd and Alderman Sennett, and the members put a lot of time into reviewing these budgets, and they are looking forward to any comments or suggestions you may have before they consider and amend and pass the budget. So what I have here, as usual, is a series of slides. We can go through some of the major points that I think need to be understood as we think about this year's budget, fiscal 27. So the first slide shows you what the overall budget is. The general fund budget is $384 million. In addition to that, we have two enterprise funds. One is for the wastewater fund, which runs the sewers and the sewage treatment plant. That is entirely funded by non-tax dollars, so that's paid for by the sewer user fees. And the other is the solid waste fund, that's the landfill. Now, there is public money, tax money that goes into that, but it also receives revenue from the tipping fees. In other words, the charges that commercial haulers pay for bringing trash to the landfill. But only Nashua residents and businesses are allowed to use this landfill, and it will come up a little bit later as well. The next slide just kind of goes over some of the major issues that we always consider. One of the biggest items, of course, are the salaries. These are salaries, fringe benefits that we pay our employees. This is schools, police, fire, city hall, the library, public health, public works, all of the departments. And this is how we compensate, of course, our employees for working very hard on behalf of the residents of Nashua. We do have state and county mandates that we have to meet. And there are fixed costs as well. And you're going to see in a minute that some of these fixed costs are going up very rapidly. These are beyond the salaries, wages, and benefits that I've already spoken about. The slide suggests that, of course, we are affected by inflation, and you're going to see that inflation is hitting us as it is, people at home and every family in Nashua. The inflation is also hitting the city very hard, and you will see some of the details in a minute. So the overall increase of the operating budget is up 6.4%. And you'll see that most of this is driven, most of the number above kind of the rate of inflation is really driven by these fixed costs, which are escalating very rapidly. But this is, as we look around the area, the state of New Hampshire and some of the other cities and towns across the state, the 6.4% is kind of in line with what, and to some degree less than some other communities are facing. They too, of course, have the inflationary impact. I wanted to just mention that our biggest expenditure, and you're going to see this in a minute, is our school funding. We educate almost 10,000 kids every year, and the state does provide some assistance as we look back to fiscal 26. The total amount of state assistance is around $65 million. This includes the adequacy grant, the basic $4,300 per student, but also additional add-ons for the number of free and reduced lunch kids we have, which is considerable, over 40%, as well as special ed students. But the city, of course, in tax money, puts in, when you put it all together, about $125 million. When people rightly complain about high property taxes, one of the biggest drivers here statewide is the fact that in terms of the proportion of total spending, and you see here it's about it approaches $200 million in total, if you include it all. When you consider the proportion of the total that is paid for by the state, New Hampshire is 50th of all the 50 states. Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, the places you think of as maybe not being as education friendly as many of the states here in the New England and the Northeast, the states, and for those in those states, the state government actually provides a bigger proportion of state spending than our state government, our state legislature here in New Hampshire. And of course, the low level of state funding has been ruled unconstitutional by the New Hampshire Supreme Court multiple times over 30 years, most recently, I think just last year again. But moving on, I wanted to just show you some of the escalating, and I'm going to say skyrocketing, fixed costs that we are facing. Medical benefits, and we are self-insured, and the city has been self-insured for a long time. I think Nashua and Manchester are the two communities in New Hampshire that are self-insured. There is a $3.4 million increase. That is, and these are health benefits, of course, for employees. That's up 7.5%. The school department needs to contract and has a legal obligation to provide special ed services to students who need special education. A lot of this has to be done through contract, and contract services are estimated for next year to go up $1.8 million, or 51%. School transportation, the school department has tried to address this cost, but unfortunately, last year they went out to bid, and there was only one bidder per student, and the bids came in high. The bid, it was one bid, came in high, and really there's no alternative but to accept their bid because the school department has a legal obligation to provide transportation, and therefore the increase last year percentage-wise was even bigger. I think it was around 20%. This year it's closer to 16, but there's $1.7 million. Now, the school department also anticipates that the out-of-district tuition using general fund money will go up $1 million or 16% between current year and next year. Another thing that we as the city are responsible for is paying the county. The county actually taxes us, basically. The county, Hillsborough County, is paid for by the cities and towns in the county. And every year they pass a budget and pass any increase on to the cities and towns. We're in the county tax, we're going to see a $1.7 million increase, 10% increase in that tax. And we also have insurance that covers various things, liability insurance for accidents and workers' comp. Those policies and the claims associated with those so-called risks are estimated to going to increase 19.5%. So when you put all those things together, you see that's a considerable amount of money. A very significant tax increase before we even get to really the city services, which, as I've already suggested, constitutes mostly wages and benefits in terms of the delivery of those services. Other costs that are new, which also drive this, the increases you see, the city decided to proceed with phase 4 of the Nashua landfill. Now, the landfill was established in around 1972 and has functioned since that time. But this phase 4 expansion not undertaken, the landfill space would have run out in a short time, 2 or 3 years, and we would then be held hostage, so to speak, by haulers and others who would take the trash probably over to Rochester. So the city, over a long period of time, has valued the ability to control its own fate when it comes to trash. This Phase 4 project will extend the length of the life of the landfill by 40 to 50 years. So well into the 21st century, this landfill will still be operational as a result of this project. But we had to borrow money to undertake it. It's heavily regulated by state DES, Department of Environmental Services. So that debt service is increasing by $1.35 million as a result, again, of this Phase 4 infrastructure improvement at the landfill. The police department needs new body cameras. So the PD has been operating with body cameras for 5 years. Those have proven to be very successful in terms of on both sides of these transactions. For the police officer, it sort of documents anything that happens, and same thing for anyone who is being stopped or arrested or anything else. It shows the entire interaction. But the body cameras, and so this was a highly successful innovation as far as the Nashua Police Department goes. The body cameras they have are now obsolete. The new system is going to cost $900,000 this year. It's the first year of a new system. And if you want to learn about all of the features that could be added to this body camera system, I think it would be worth talking to the PD, and you will learn like just everything that could be added to supplement the basic body camera approach. But that's a worthwhile expenditure, but something we didn't have last year. Now, certainly with budgets and taxes as they are, we wanted to show you at least the efforts that are being made to try to consolidate and save costs. The school department proposed reducing their payroll by 56 people. This is certainly, in an acknowledgement that, they realize that costs need to be controlled as much as possible. So there are 56 less positions in the city, in the school department, therefore, in the city government than there will be in fiscal 27 and in 26. In addition, we made City Hall, believe it or not, is very tight. There's a little extra there, but we did work with the school department to consolidate the IT functions. We have Nick Misevich oversees the IT for the city, in City Hall, and he will now be supervising the work for the school department as well. And I want to thank the school department for agreeing to undertake this. This will save. This consolidation will save $100,000 a year. Now, in terms of the budgets that were sent to me earlier in the year, I think in March or so, I and the budget team that I work with made some reductions which are being proposed to the Board of Aldermen, which are in the budget that's proposed to the Board of Aldermen. We reduced various salaries and wages in various positions by $1.73 million. There is something called SERF, which is Capital Equipment Reserve Fund. This helps to buy equipment. We believe we felt that we could make do or get by pretty well with $2 million less than was called for, so that's a $2 million reduction. We did reduce the school budget by 0.5%, which represents $668,000. This is beyond the 56 positions. There's something called contingency. We reduced the appropriation, the proposed appropriation into the contingency account by $250,000, less than requested. And there is the Hydro Capital Reserve Fund. We reduced that by $250,000. The effort here is to try to, in a very difficult year and hard times for everyone, to keep expenses as low as we possibly could in order to deliver a tax rate that is as low as possible. The next slide just gives you kind of an overview of where the city dollars, where your tax money is going. Salaries and wages, again, big item, $180 million. Fringe benefits on top of that, $180 million or 47%. Fringe benefits, another 25%. So you see when you add those two percentages together, you're nearly 75% of the tax dollars go to salaries, wages, benefits of the employees that serve the citizens. The debt service is 6.2%. Oftentimes people have a misimpression. They see a capital project and they think that, oh my God, that's going to drive up the taxes a lot. But, certainly it has an impact. But all of the debt service, the schools, anything else that the city has done outside the enterprise funds, anything else, put it all together, and the debt service, meaning the principal and interest that gets paid every year, is 6.1% of the budget. And then kind of everything else, there's a lot of other things, the liability insurance and IT costs, software, all this kind of stuff, constitutes 14.8%, roughly 15% of the budget. In terms of the allocation to the various departments, as you see, the school department, gets the vast majority. That's the largest expenditure. The responsibility of educating nearly 10,000 children. That is expensive. The police department, 11.3, the fire department, 9.3. Of course, those two departments are the departments that work to keep the city safe, and we have been recognized as being one of the safest cities in the United States on numerous occasions. Again, you see debt service 6%. DPW, they touch people actually every day. Garbage collection, plowing, streets, potholes, everything. But they're really actually, and parks, they're really only 4.4% of the budget. Again, showing you the escalating costs of health insurance and medical benefits. This gives you a 4 or 5 year history. It just shows you how much health insurance, and we are not atypical here. This is, all cities and towns are facing this kind of thing. You see that we're really in double digits or approaching double digits every year, far more than the rate of inflation. So that this year, the appropriation into health benefits is over $48 million. And finally, the county tax. Again, I've touched on this earlier. We pay the county. They kind of slip by under the radar a lot of times. You don't really realize how much they're impacting, or at least the rate of increase is impacting us. But in 24, there was a 5% increase. In 29, a 19% increase in the county tax. And then in this current 26, 10%. And we're going to see about, I guess that's the projected increase. And you see how the dollars have gone up. Just over a few years, it's gone from roughly $13 million to $18 million. Again, the rising costs that we are facing. But I think that there's a thank you. Thank you for listening to all of these dry statistics, but they do touch people's lives, every day. So why don't we will now go back to Alderman Senate. I'd like to say before I conclude that Alderman Dowd is ill, and we're sorry to hear that, because he's done a very good job as Budget Committee Chair for a long time. But we'll go back to Alderman Senate and then listen to your comments and questions.
Thank you, Mayor. So we're going to begin with the public portion of the public hearing. Again, I'll just remind folks to keep your questions relative to the departments as we call them out one by one. Any other topics that you may have to be addressed can be addressed at regular Board of Aldermen meetings, and to kindly keep your comments or questions to 5 minutes or less. You will not be interrupted, but the chair will remind you when your 5 minutes has elapsed and ask if you complete your current question. So with that in mind, we're going to start with general government, which includes the mayor's office on page 28, Board of Aldermen on page 30, legal department on 35, city clerk's office on 33, parking operations and enforcement on 43, economic development on 50, and office of strategic communications on 54. I will advise that I'm doing my best to keep the page numbers accurate to the books that are available outside. So if you have any comments on or questions regarding those divisions, I'll invite you up to the microphone at this time. And I'll ask also before we start to the various department heads that are here, if a question arises that is within your purview to answer, that you come down to the microphone opposite me to answer. Thank you.
Okay, I'll start off. My name is Brad Peeble, former Alderman. I'm going to address the general government, the general church, particularly answer some of the questions that Mayor Dodges raised. Mayor Dodges issued guidelines of 3% in the budget. Memorandum 22 December 2025. It turns out that time him out for a second.
I've got you covered, Mr. Tebow.
Check, check, 1, 2, 1, 2. We're just going to get a stand for this and put this one away for a moment. I'm so sorry. No. It has been requested that I sing a song, and that's not going to happen. I apologize to my fans in the crowd. And that's for the record. This one does, yes. It's a little loose, but we'll make it work. Check, check.
Okay,
Why don't we try it?
can you hear me now? Okay, you start the timer again. Okay, I'm going to address general government in terms, answer some of the questions that Mayor Donches raised, but from a different perspective, obviously. The general fund that's presented to you in this budget is $384.3 million. That represents an increase of $23.2 million, or 6.43%. I think that's the number you presented, Mayor.
Correct.
And the mayor had a guideline of 3%, which you presented in a memorandum, 22 December 2025. So by all measures, Mayor Donches, you're not doing a very good job managing the city. Because if you hold things to 3% and they come in at 6.43%, it's your budget that you're proposing. It's not just Alderman budget. You're not doing a very good job. Now, 3% of the general fund that would have been increased would be 10.8 million. Proposed is an increase of $23.2 million, which means they're $12.4 million above the guideline. Now the taxes, I did some calculation because we have the budget is fairly readable, well presented. What's missing are salaries. There's absolutely no information about salaries. But I was able to obtain a spreadsheet of all the salaries in the city. Now, the taxes that need to be raised, if you look at the calculations of the budget, is $288.8 million. I don't think the mayor mentioned that.
I did not, but that's a correct figure, yes.
288.8 million. If it's not the correct figure, you have CFO Don right next to you. She can
It is,
correct
it is a correct figure.
It is a
It
correct
is.
number. Thank
yes.
you. So that means that each 1% of the taxes is 2.9 million. Every increase of 1% represents 2.9 million. If you want to reduce the tax rate by 1%, you got to cut $2.9 million for every 1%. So the question then is, what is the tax rate? I've stood before the Board of Aldermen many times, and I said, why isn't its board asking for predictions of the tax rate? It's not that difficult. When I was an alderman, we did it routinely, the Mayor Lozo, routinely. Under your administration, Mayor Donches, nobody's doing it.
Nobody's what?
Calculating the tax rate, the predicted tax rate.
Well, we have predicted the tax rate.
Well, I've calculated it myself,
Okay.
and I've calculated that 7.5%. Given the taxes that have been raised, $288.8 million, and the city's valuation, which is an MS-10, of about $16 billion. That's the assessable value of the city. You're going to face 7.5% in the tax rate.
No, we don't know exactly, but that is approximately correct,
That is
yes.
approximately correct, because
Yes.
I calculated that, and I don't make that many mistakes. So, what does it mean? Well, laugh on. You're going to face a hell of a problem here. Because if you take a $6 million transfer from fund balance, that's a lot of money from fund balance, and you still have to make an additional $6 million worth of cuts, that's $12 million worth of reduction or offset on this tax rate I just mentioned. And then you still face a 3.4% increase in the tax rate, even if you make a $12 million offset. let me repeat that. $6 million fund balance and $6 million cuts. You are facing, Alderman, a $6 million cut to be made. And I question whether you have the guts to make it. Now, let me make some recommendations. The city has a staff, and this again, the city didn't publish this, but the city staff, if you look at the spreadsheets, not published in the budget,
But we have provided the salaries, a printout of all the salaries to anybody who wants it. So it's not like these are secret or something.
I've never seen it offered by the alderman.
Well, Dawn is pointing out that it's in the back of the budget,
Well,
actually.
you're taking, no, it's not in the back of the budget.
Where is this? Where is it? Where is it?
Now, the city has a staff of about 1,266 employees, full-time and part-time. Not in the budget. The school has a staff of about 2,055. That is in their budget. The school made an excellent presentation, much better than the cities. And they announced the number of staff. That means you got 3,321 people working for the city. That represents 3.6% of the population of 92,616 citizens. I just looked it up on the internet today.
Mr. Teboom, I'll just caution you, you're at 5 minutes now. If you could wrap up your points.
I'll come back, I'll pick up this point, I'll come back later and make more points.
Appreciate you.
The guidelines are published. What should the city have for staff? The city should have 1% of the population. That's a general, for a small city of 100,000, thereabouts, city employees, that school should be about 1%. That represents 926 people, not 1,266. The school, generally accepted on the high end, is 150 staff per 1,000 students, which represents 1,425 staff. So you should have a combined city school staff of 2,350. What you have is 3,321. You are heavy by 971 staff, Mayor Donches. There's the real problem. You're way over the norm in terms of staffing. It's been growing and growing and growing, and no one is ever reducing. I'll come back to some more comments.
Well, let me address a couple of those things. First of all, the number of employees is being reduced, as I pointed out. Number two, I mean, to get to the number that you proposed, we would need to lay off 900 people. You know, what would we do? Lay off 100 cops, 100 firefighters, 500 teachers, and we'd get to your number, not quite. But every year, and this is, you know, what is faced every year, that the city, the mayor, the board of aldermen, and the citizens have to evaluate whether they wish to continue with the level of service that they currently have. And this is a budget that basically maintains current level of services. I mean, it does not cut the police department or lay off cops. It doesn't lay off firefighters. It does reduce people in the school department. We do have declining enrollments. But, you know, overall, I think the citizens appreciate the services that they receive. People work very hard, and I think most citizens realize that. And so the idea of laying off 1,000 employees is just, you know, not in anyone's, other than maybe you, Mr. Teboom. I've never heard anyone suggest we should lay off 1,000 people.
I think we can do it in phases.
Anyway, that concludes my thoughts.
All right. Any other comments or questions for general government, covering mayor's office, board of aldermen, legal, city clerk's office, parking, economic development, or strategic communications?
Can you all hear me?
And I should just remind folks, name and city or town of residence for the record, please. Thank you.
Yep, Chesley Marvin, 10 Marion Lane, Nashua, New Hampshire. So I am here to talk about the parking right now, although primarily I'm here to support the schools. And as I was thumbing through this massive tome, I noticed that the proposed budget between the alderman and the mayor was about $1 million difference for the schools. So I was thumbing through, thinking about what would I do in y'all's shoes. And parking struck me as an interesting situation. It looks to be about 50% of the operating budget from just the quick look that I took at it. Let me find the page I was on before. Yeah, it looks like parking enforcement and parking operations, we're paying about $1.3 million, and the revenue from those sources is about $1.7 million. So we're funding it like half of its operation budget. I guess that's kind of a question, but also an observation. And so I thumbed over to page 43 after hearing there was more about it on there, and noticed the breakdown on there. Seems like there could be room here for, and I'm not saying this is the only way that we could make up some ground here, but as somebody who is a taxpayer who visits places in downtown Nashua and across town, the parking is about $1.50 per hour, wildly subsidized, right? And parking and driving in general as a concept in our society is wildly subsidized. And I would be okay with, and I think many people would disagree with me, but I also think New Hampshire taxpayers tend to gravitate more toward consumer and taxes if they're going to support any, right? So if you're going to drive into town versus taking the bus versus walking versus biking, which are all things that we as a town should absolutely be supporting and building up, but as budgets are tightening, I understand why we're not increasing anything a lot. I could stomach, and I would suggest that you guys maybe take a look at what revenues we could pull from these outdoor dining permits, meter fees, lease garage lots. Is there any room there to increase the budget? Possibly. And before I saw that, it looks like parking meter fees are only netting us revenue-wise $359,000. You know, it was the same. I assume 2026, that was the actual. I'm sorry, I'm not in finance. I don't really know how to read this, but it looks like we're predicting it to be about the same. And I can't remember if the parking was recently raised or not, and if this prediction is taking into consideration any of that. Maybe there's room to raise the parking rates from $1.50, which again, I feel is really cheap. It's not an equitable service, right? You have to have money to have a car. You have to have money to park it. Adding, like increasing bus headways, all would be amazing ways to discourage. And of course, increasing fees to park would be good ways for the city to discourage car trips, which is overall a really good thing for our city, a good thing for public, people-centric spaces. Get people walking and biking more is also good for their health. So I think there's a lot of potential benefits to it, in addition to creating more revenue that could in turn lighten the load on the schools, because cutting about $1 million from their proposed budget I know is really gonna hurt them, and maybe parking's one place we could earn some back. So that was my thought I'd share it, and that's it for now.
I believe Director Hannum has stepped up to answer some of your questions.
Oh, cool.
Liz Haddam, Economic Development Director. We do plan to revisit the revenue and the pricing for parking every 3 to 5 years. We're about 1.5 years in to the most recent change, which wasn't changed since 2008, I believe. So it was a long time since we raised the rates, and now they're at $1.50. So we try to balance lots of things. Affordability for customers of downtown to support some of the businesses, but we are going to reevaluate every 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, and if there's a coalition on this that you guys look for input on, that would be cool. I assume there isn't one because I haven't heard about it, but there's a lot of research out there and a lot of organizations that have, you know, pretty clearly laid out the benefits to businesses when you create more people-centric spaces over car-centric spaces. So anything we can do to discourage car trips, and again, it's not an equitable way to transit, so. And hopefully get more revenue if that's what people do choose, because choice is awesome. Thank you.
All right, are there any other comments or questions for general government?
My name is Bill Ferrio. My home is number 35 Indian Rock Road. I had first a couple of questions about the mayor's office budget on page 29. So, Mayor, when you sent out that directive in December requesting that each department be within 3% of the last year's budget, you talked about financial pressures that were on the residents. Financial pressures was in that report, in that memo as well. But your budget yourself on page 29, you didn't even meet that 3% maximum directive. Why do you think that is? Wouldn't you think it'd be a good idea for you to step up and set an example and show some priority if you really were interested in doing that, if you really wanted your team to do that? Why wouldn't your office meet that?
Fringe benefits went up a lot. You know, the cost of health care. We did cut back on increases that were slated for City Hall salaries, the so-called non-affiliated employees. So we did a survey, and it determined that unaffiliated employees, this means non-union employees, across the city, I mean, this not just City Hall, but elsewhere as well, basically found that they're, relative to other cities, underpaid. And so there was a plan to increase those salaries. And as a result of the overall increase caused by these fixed costs that, I pointed out already, as well as the projected tax increase that could result, we tried to cut back in a number of areas. And one of the areas was to, I could explain exactly how this is done, but the full step increase that is called for in the ordinances, as well as the salary adjustments that the study called for to equalize the pay with other city employees, other cities and towns, as well as cost of living increases, it was too much. So at least in my budget, we cut that back a little bit and saved, I think, $400,000. But in all the departments, and Mr. Teboom did mention the 3% guideline. Now that was, aspirational. This is what we'd like to get. But when we see, health insurance going up by nearly double digits, school transportation going up 15%, some other thing going up 50%. There's no way we can hit 3% without serious service reductions. So if you look at the wages, in terms of, say, the union wages, police, fire, and others, public works, they are either a little over 3% or around 3%, or maybe a little less in some instances. But it's these other costs that are really driving all these budgets up more than the 3%.
That's great, man, but I was asking about your department only, just yours.
I told
That's
you
what we're talking
the fringe benefits went up
Okay, but
considerably.
Okay, so your requirement was 3% excluding fringe benefits. If you do the math, your department, excluding fringe benefits, you're still in excess of a 3% increase.
Well, that's true, but there's the salary increases that were called for by ordinance, which we cut back. So if we hadn't done that, it would have been more.
Okay, I guess I don't understand why you would send out this directive without investigating further whether it's really truly something that's aspirational or something that's doable.
Okay, next year we'll make it much higher if that would make you happy. I'll say 5%. I won't try for 3%. If that would make you more comfortable.
You're the leader of the city. You sent out something that said 3%. Okay?
That's right.
All right. So you put some thought into that. You didn't meet that yourself.
Yeah, I don't think
asking.
there's.
I'll move on.
All
I
right,
only have
good.
5 minutes. Also on page 29, there's a paragraph called services. You talked tonight about how the state is screwing us and has been screwing us for a long time. You talked about that a lot, right? Okay. So the third bullet under services, I want to read something. So this paragraph called services, it's kind of like your job description, right? This is pretty much what this is. This is your job description. This is the stuff you're responsible for, right? In this paragraph called services. The third one down, I'm going to read it a little bit. Interface with city departments and elected officials at the local, state, and federal level to find solutions to challenges facing the city. That's your job. That's what you're supposed to be doing. You should be working with the state to address these challenges facing the city. Why is that not happening?
Well, certainly I work closely with our legislative delegation, 27 reps and 2 senators, to address the issues that I have raised. Our legislative delegation has consistently, and it is mostly Democrats, but our legislative delegation has consistently supported improving school aid, thereby reducing property taxes. But the majority in the legislature is adamantly opposed to raising anything for schools. So if you know a way to reach the majority party and persuade them that school aid needs to go up, I would welcome that assistance.
I had a couple of suggestions, sir, if I could.
All right.
The first would be, there's nothing wrong with asking for help. If this is something that's not within your wheelhouse, maybe the city should consider hiring a consultant or a professional.
I mean, we have asked for help. We asked through our delegation. For example, the town of Merrimack, the town council wrote to the governor and said, this is, we cannot abide by the, this is terrible what you're doing. I don't even think they got a response. So working with the majority up there is, any member, I've testified in favor of this. I've testified in the legislature. Just because we ask doesn't mean anything changes.
I had one other suggestion, sir. You mentioned using the 27 state reps.
Yes.
I'll skip over that one. You can do what you do best. Your experience, your background, your training. You're an attorney. Go sue the state, sir. Go get our money, sir. Do that.
We did sue the state. We did sue the state. We did sue the state.
Do it again.
And we got, in the recent decision of the Superior Court, I think we're in 25. The Conval case, Steve Bolton was one of the attorneys. The Superior Court held that the level of school aid in New Hampshire is so low that it violates the New Hampshire Constitution. We got that decision. That was appealed to the Supreme Court. The state which has the obligation, the constitutional obligation of providing money for an adequate education, they argued in the Supreme Court that school buildings, the cost of that that's not part of an adequate education. I guess they're advocating totally remote learning. But in any event, the Supreme Court confirmed the decision we got and held, the Supreme Court yet again, that the level of aid is unconstitutional. But the Supreme Court did not order anything. They asked the legislator to address it. And that has been done over and over and over again for the last 30 years. This is not the first time that the court has ruled that this is an unconstitutional system. Yet, the majority in the legislature refuses to honor the decision of the court, and they stonewall the court, and they refuse to put up more money. So we have sued more than once. We've won more than once. And yet the legislature refuses to follow the opinion of the courts.
Can I keep going?
Yeah, you've got about 2 more minutes.
Okay. Again, this is on page 28, sir. And this is a question that actually applies to several departments within the city. I asked this question a couple times at the Budget Review Committee hearings, and I understand that was not an opportunity for question and answer, but I didn't really get an answer. I questioned the math for Social Security and Medicare and pension expenses, those two rows. What's the math? How do you calculate those numbers? And I don't ask that. What's the math behind? What's the specific math? Is it a function of the wages? And I don't ask that to be annoying. I ask that for a couple of reasons. Number one is that you talk a lot about the pension expenses a lot, and how that's another.
I have talked about, not tonight, but yes.
Not tonight.
Yes, but that's another, we could
So you
talk
want
about that.
You want that to be accurate. Right? You want to make sure that's accurate.
I
in
s-
this book,
Is
right?
it accurate?
The other
It
reason
is accurate. It's a proportion of the wages,
Good answer. The other reason I ask is because
dictated by the state of New Hampshire.
if you look at the column called FY27 Mayor Proposed, there's many instances in this book where the mayor proposed values are lower. You talked about that yourself, how you decrease wages. Many instances where you decrease wages. But the values for Social Security, Medicare, and pension didn't change in the book. Why didn't those decrease, sir, with the wages? That's why I asked.
We are asking the Budget Committee to make those adjustments. But if you want to take a moment, I could talk about the pensions. That's another.
No.
All
I
right.
want to know if these values are.
We're in a state pension system. You realize that, right?
I understand it, sir. Are the values in the book, in the column called Mayor Proposed, for Social Security, Medicare, and pension correct, or are they wrong?
They need to be reduced in many cases.
So they're wrong.
Yes, they need to be adjusted.
You're at about
But
time.
we've submitted the adjustments to the Budget Committee, so, we've shown them where.
Why are they wrong? Why didn't you correct them when you did the Mayor Proposed column?
Because when the budget, I'm not sure, because when we reduced the wages, those adjustments should have been made, but they weren't.
What else gets reduced? Would the benefits get reduced?
No, because that is not tied to
Are there
wages.
any other values in the book that you know are wrong?
There's some adjustments that we've asked for, but
Adjustments.
yes, you can look at there's a sheet of them that, we can provide. The Budget Committee has it, and it's part of their minutes.
I guess I don't know why you would present this to the public with a bunch of stuff that you know is wrong.
That is time, Mr. Ferrio.
Can I keep going?
That's 5 minutes, Mr. Ferrio. Thank you.
Gary Hoffman, 38 Perham Street, Townhouse D. So the previous speaker had asked why you weren't able to make the 3% for the city for your budget. I believe earlier you showed that the health insurance premiums went up, 10%, Mayor Donchis?
I think it was closer to 9.
Yeah, well, that's triple, and is that uncommon in other towns and cities? And is that
Ours is actually a little lower than some of the others.
I don't know if the city of Nashua can dictate to Anthem Insurance or Harvard Pilgrim. We have Anthem, right? Say, no, you got to give us 3%, right? That's not really the way it works, right? Correct?
Correct. I mean, these are estimates regarding the claims that will have to be paid over the course of the next 12 months.
Yeah. So to me, those costs are not something you can really control, and it kind of explains why you weren't able to make the 3%. That's all.
Thank you.
Lori Ortolano, Nashua. I'm concerned about the increase. I don't support the budget as it's presented. Within the general government division, I think that you have to ask yourself for this whole budget, what burden with 7.4% or around that amount will, your average ranch in Nashua see for a tax increase? And it's going to come out to about $600 with this budget. And I think that's a lot of money. And I think every time we look at these budget increases, we have to look at the demographics of our city and consider the impact on that demographic. We talk about the need to deliver services at the level we deliver them, but I can't say I've ever really heard discussion about what reduced services look like. I happen to think there are too many positions as well. And it's all about the positions and the benefits and the pensions and the medical. No question, 75%. You really got to strike there. There are departments, and I don't want to come up and talk each time, that I would strike positions from them. Yours, the Strategic Communications Director, I'd strike that position. You know, I don't think that's going to be effective, and I think what the Board of Aldermen needs to do is become better communicators with their public. There isn't good policy at the board table to allow the public to address them in areas of disagreement where they're received well. Go to MHNA, use your free training, get trained on what you need to do to address the public, and do it well. Your management within the city, I think, needs training on how to manage better. You've hired outside employment attorneys to do some of that. Continue to do that, because I think you've got some management problems. I think within the positions in the budget that I look at, 20% of those positions are paid above six figures, above 100 grand. There's also a lot of management titles where the people aren't really managing anyone, or they're managing one person. I really question whether you need a management title in a management position to be an unaffiliated to manage a single person. You know, so I really think that has to be looked at. The city clerk's office, they're a good interface to the city overall. When you go in there, the counters are all pretty busy. The clerks are all pretty receptive to helping you. The only thing missing is the right to know coordinator isn't there. And he should be in the city clerk's office available. You still have him behind a locked door with flex hours, doesn't answer phone calls. I think creates a lot of liability on these right to knows. I think we could do much better without him. Okay, and your new software system is, I'm gonna tell you, it's difficult. Difficult for me, doesn't give you the right answers. So Corporation Council looks like the budget overall, when you look in the book, is pretty flat. But in truth, we know there's been a lot of litigation, a lot of increased costs, a lot of stuff going on. None of that appears in the Corporation Council budget, because consultants and outside services are all shoved into the overlay account, which is not part of this budget. And I'm opposed to that strongly. That is tax-funded dollars that go into that account. And to put it aside, and there can be 11 million over there. I think right now there's 5 million over there to deal with abatements, lawsuits, consultants, anyone you need. It's pushed into this overlay budget, which is like a slush fund. Why isn't that in the general budget? You know, other cities and towns put it there. And if that was in the general budget, we might appreciate, you know, all the complaints that have come in that litigation has become too high and there's certain people we need to target who do this. And I don't know with economic development how much work is going into developing commercial and industrial businesses. But again, I talked to you about the taxpayer, the residential property owner, because they're shouldering, based on the last assessment, there's a 13% disparity between commercial properties and residential, with residential carrying that extra 13% burden. I know we didn't do an update this year, but I have a funny feeling it's probably as high. I wouldn't have expected it to go down. So you're asking the average homeowner to shoulder quite a lot of this. And you're looking, the houses that take the biggest increase and are paying $8,000 a year in taxes are a lot of these ranches. So this kind of budget increase is really significant. And, you know, I would be willing to talk about what do decreased services mean. One less clerk in the office, 1 day of reduced hours, no right to know coordinator. I mean, positions, whatever you want to talk about, positions that you're going to say, we're not going to do it. I mean, that's what it comes down to. And I really think you got to look at these unaffiliated salaries. They're super high. And, you know, I don't think somebody making $170,000 needs to get a 3% increase like somebody making, you know, 90,000 does. These are big increases on very high salaries. And I think it's become overbearing. We got plenty of well-paid management, but I don't think we're managing the city particularly well. And that's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
Anyone else for general government?
Yeah, Beth Scare, Nashua. Yeah, I'm looking at page 35, Corporation Council. I'm also concerned, like Lori is, that it's not showing what we're really paying in legal expenses. I heard about this very expensive law firms that the city hired this past year, and for what reason, I don't even know. And it's not here in the budget. So I really am very concerned about that. Thank you.
All right. The legal expenses for these outside law firms appear in the risk portion of the budget. The overlay is something different. See, what the overlay is money reserved to pay for successful tax abatements. So we often face many commercial taxpayers, property owners of large properties, sue the city in an effort to reduce their taxes. And usually, the Corporation Council and our legal office represents the city in those cases, but we need experts. These things go to court. We need an expert to testify regarding the viability, the accurateness of the city assessment versus the expert on the other side who says that the assessment's way too high and the taxes should be reduced. So yes, there are expenses regarding tax abatements for attorneys and for experts that appear in the overlay account. But with respect to other lawsuits, like we've had a lot of lawsuits, and you did successfully sue regarding the flags, but generally speaking, we win these cases, but it costs a lot of money to do that, and we can't just lay down and pay someone $2 million. So we have to defend. Someone sues, they want $2 million. They sue 10 all different police officers, city volunteers, myself, Bert Griffin, everybody. Everybody's a defendant. And yeah, in the end, it all gets dismissed, and we win a jury trial, but that costs hundreds of thousands of dollars to get there. So the way to save that money is not to have not to have that litigation. So those kind of legal expenses, yeah, they're high, and they appear in the risk budget, but it is better than just handing over millions of dollars to someone who sues us.
And where's that? What page?
The risk, where is the risk? What page is the risk budget on? What is it, 77? Okay.
So this is the money to hire law firms to fight Lori on her lawsuits?
Well, she's not the only one, but I mean, would you have paid Ms. Ortolano $2 million?
Yeah, of course.
Well, that you would have. Well, I thought you were concerned about the taxpayer.
What I'm concerned about right now is where where the
So
money
even though we won the case,
in the budget.
even though the court, there were 110 different claims, before trial, the city had 106 of those claims dismissed. 4 claims were tried. We won outright. 0 cost to the taxpayer in terms of verdict awards or anything like that. I mean, you start handing out $2 million just because someone files a invalid case against you, we're going to have not one plaintiff, but 10 plaintiffs.
My concern is, where is it in the budget?
Oh, okay. It's in the risk budget.
I'm looking on 77. Is that include the law firms?
Look at look at 53 on page 78. Legal services, $300,000. Now that is a big reduction from previous years because we think we're facing less litigation because we've won some cases. We're facing less litigation than we have in the past, but there it is specifically designated.
Okay, thanks.
With regard to overlay, as the mayor says, that is used only for expenses related to property tax appeals. In more than 10 years, one case, only one case, only 4 days of trial did we hire an outside lawyer to do those cases. Otherwise, Deputy Corporation Counsel Leonard and I have done every single tax abatement appeal for commercial properties or in Superior Court. The assessing department has done single-family home cases, so it's all in-house. The one exception for that one case was because both Attorney Leonard and I were defendants in a different case, and you can't be in two places at the same time. But we don't hire outside counsel to do tax abatement work.
But we do need experts.
We hire expert appraisers, so does the other side. The court requires us, in cases in Superior Court, to go to mediation. Mediators charge. We pay half, the appealing taxpayer pays half. Those are expenses that we have to bear. We win more of those cases than we lose if you look at what the taxpayer wants, what their expert says compared to what our expert says. We settle a lot of them for somewhere north of middle, so in our favor. Anytime the taxpayer gets any dollar back, maybe you call that a loss. For example, Public Service of New Hampshire brought suit against us for several years. We went to trial on that. They were seeking a refund in taxes of $4 million. We tried the case. Court ordered a refund of $200,000. We would have liked the court to order nothing, but compared to $4 million, $200,000 was a good result. So the idea that this is a slush fund and we go out, hire outside counsel and sit around not doing work is totally erroneous.
And you got to understand, there are a lot of these cases. Like, to sue the city, you have to serve the mayor with process. So I get served by these tax cases probably at least once a week. The sheriff, is like as a regular circuit. A lot of these big taxpayers, this is what they do. They sue and they try to get their taxes lower. And we're not just going to hand over money. I mean, we fight the case and we settle as best we can, or we try it and hopefully are successful.
Anyone else for general government? Oh.
My name is Kevin Fitzpatrick. I live on 55 Shelley Drive. I don't think we should be reducing services. I think that's a silly thing to do in an economic recession. People need help. People need more services now than we ever have. I teach in this building. The students need help. We all need help. Everyone needs help sometimes, and that's normal. That's your job. Please just do your best. That's all I got.
All right, anybody else for general government?
Good evening, Lou Juris here from Haines Street. Just a general comment for general government. I don't think tonight is a forum to take pot shots at our public officials, whether it's the mayor or anybody else. We should be sticking to what's relevant in the budget. And I heard a couple of speakers talk about what's happening at the State House. There's a group of people up there that are not interested in all, whether it's the legislature or the Senate, and possibly the governor who's from this city, care about public education, care about properly funding the pensions of the, I think the group 2 of this city. And this is evident, and it is history now for many years due to the downshifting that's been going on from the state. Whether it's for the pensions, whether it's now the plan to give vouchers, school vouchers, to families with no limits. No limits. Families making the poverty level or a little bit above, up to whatever it is, 500,000 a year, 800,000 a year. Well, they live here. They can now get a voucher for 4,600 or a little bit more to go to a private school, a religious school, an academy, etc. This is, along with what was presented with healthcare costs, is what's affecting us a lot with these budgets. And again, and I think one of the speakers was from I forget the road, the street he lived on. I believe we was talking about us communicating with the it's difficult to communicate with this group's leadership when it comes to public education. They don't want to hear. They are in the tank. They are all in with either making this building in particular, or any other school building in this state, buckle or fail, for that matter. But I believe one of the speakers was from, he lives in an area where the governor, I think, lives. So perhaps that speaker can go down the street and knock on the door and say, hey, we're having a tough time here. We've had to increase our budget in the city. The taxes are going to go up. There's lawsuits going on. We've got to hire outside counsel. Maybe that'd be a place to start. And as time goes on now, a lot of these bills that were passed are going to be, there'll be ceremonies. There'll be media events. There'll be cameras there. There'll be plenty on the internet of our governor signing these bills, which again are going to directly affect what's happening here in the education system, as well as in the general government of Nashua. So thank you for having this opportunity here tonight, and it's always good to be with everybody here during budget season. Thank you again.
Anyone else for general government? Seeing none, we will move on to Public Works and Engineering, which begins on page 184 of the bound book. Any questions or comments for Public Works and Engineering?
Okay, the first, Fred T-Boom, 24 Cheyenne. The first comment I want to make about Public Works is in the Holocaust Memorial, whoever takes care of it does an outstanding job. It looks beautiful. Now, I can't resist to mention, responding to City Attorney Bolton, who says that he does all this great work. I remember I filed a malpractice complaint with the Professional Conduct Committee, and guess who answered me? On behalf of the city, a very expensive law firm.
Mr. T-Boom, this is for Public Works and Engineering, please.
Yeah, so I wanted to mention in terms of Public Works the salaries. You know, the mayor mentioned the salaries are $180.8 million in the city, and the fringe benefits that people talk about is $98.4 million. And they say, well, the costs keep going up. And as I mentioned many times, many of these costs depend on contracts. And the contracts get approved routinely by this board of aldermen without a change. They never send the contract back. Not on fringe benefits and not on salaries. Now, would it surprise you when I finally got a hold of the spreadsheet that 20% of the city employees, 20% of the number of city employees I mentioned earlier, are earning over $100,000 a year. 20%. The highest paid employees, $220,000 a year, chief of police. The salaries are very high, as Ortolano mentioned. And some of these departments are out of control. Administrative services asked for a 16.5% increase.
Let's keep it to Public Works, please.
$3.2 million. I got 5 minutes left, I want to mention the spending cap. That applies to all departments.
As it relates to the Public Works and Engineering Department,
Yes.
please.
Now, the city claims, without detail to each department, that they are $16.2 million under the cap. And when I calculated using supplemental appropriations, which aren't even part of the cap language in the charter, you're $8.5 million over the cap. And if you take away supplemental appropriations, which are designed only to cheat the spending cap, you're $24.6 million over the cap with this budget, Mayor Bonachos.
Well, Mr. Tebow, may I respond to that? Or
Yeah, and if you say, yes,
we won't take it out of your time, right?
yeah, go ahead.
Well, we disagree regarding the cap calculation. You have sued us how many times over this? 3, 4 times? I forget.
There's another one coming up.
And you lose every time. The court agrees with us every time. So, yeah, okay, there's probably going to be another lawsuit, but why litigate the same? You want to save legal costs and just trouble for everyone? Why litigate the same issue over and over and over and over?
I'll tell you why. I asked for a meeting with Dawn Enright, CFO. And the 6 o'clock in the morning of the day of the meeting, the morning of the meeting, she says, I got to cancel the meeting. And I said, well, when can you cancel it, right, Dawn? And she says, you can send me the questions instead. And I spent about a day putting together some detailed questions, right, Dawn? And I just get it, and she sent it right to the Right to Know Law parent coordinator that you have hired in the city. And I just got the answer back. You know what the answer was back and why I sued the city? The answer gave me a corrected annual budget resolution. That was it. And it said, Right to Know Law questions closed. I can't get a response from you. I cannot get a meeting with Dawn Enright to have explained to me why these calculations are so different. I can't get a meeting, I can't questions answered. So the only thing I can do is go back to the court. I think the court has a back door to the city legal office.
That is ridiculous.
Well,
no
tell me
judge
why I
would
can't
talk to any party to a case. That's ridiculous.
Will you let me meet with Dawn Enright?
Could we please refocus the questions to the Public Works and Engineering Department?
Can I have an answer to that question?
Well, I'll look into it. But I mean, one problem is we want to make sure that because we know you're going to sue one way or the other, that the dialogue is clearly documented. So it's not like, well, she told me X and she says, no, I didn't. And we've seen that so many times in these cases. So it's better if we communicate in writing so that it's clear what you've asked and it's clear what the answer is.
Good, you got the questions. Can you at least have the questions answered by Dawn Enright without some Right to Know Law?
Well, I haven't seen the questions, but I'll go over it with Dawn, with Ms. Enright, CFO.
Thank you.
Anyone else with questions or comments for Public Works and Engineering?
Hi, my name is Sharon Giglio. I live at 29 Taschereau Boulevard, and I'm also on the Board of Education here in Nashua. And I have a question that I think applies to all of the items on tonight's agenda, and that is something that the mayor brought up earlier. What exactly does the county do for us in all our departments with the money that we pay them every year? I know we pay the county money. What do we get in return?
Well, I can answer briefly. I mean, they do a lot. You know, they run a nursing home.
Okay.
There's the county nursing home. They run the county jail.
Okay.
You know, on Valley Street in Manchester, there's a women's prison out in Goffstown.
Yeah.
The county sheriff, the county attorney.
So all of this is outside of the city, though? It's for the whole state?
Yes. This is for the whole county.
Just for Hillsborough County?
But now Nashua pays about 25% of the county budget. So what it's about, us and Manchester kind of fluctuate back and forth as to who's paying more. But the tax is based on the total assessment of the community. So if our assessments, our total value is 10 times more than some other place, we pay 10 times as much as them. So we pay about 25% of the county, meaning we Nashua have about 25% of the assessed value. Manchester is about the same. And then various towns pay, on down from there.
Okay, well, thank you for clarifying that, because it was interesting to hear that we give money to the county, and I wasn't even thinking about what the county does for us. I mean, I forgot all about the nursing home and the jail and the prison and everything else. But are we getting a fair deal for our?
It's kind of a loaded question. You're asking someone who has,
I'll leave it at that.
we have to write this check. We have to write this one big check. Is it, so, it's a painful one to send.
Thank you.
Anyone else for Public Works and Engineering?
My name is Bill Ferrio. My home is number 35, Indian Rock Road. I had a question about actual public works, if that's okay. So I wanted to ask about the budget for the design of the new garage. Mayor?
Yes.
Okay. $3 million bond that was approved some
Yes.
number of months ago?
Yes.
Okay. So prior to that bond being approved, there was a memo from Mr. Cummings to the Aldermen that showed the basis for the $3 million. That's this here. There's like 5 or 6 items that add up to $3 million. Okay, good.
Yeah.
So the first item on the list is called HKT Architects. The architects, okay? That's $650,000. Okay? This is the contract and the proposal between the city and HKT Architects for this same scope. It's $550,426. I didn't understand why the bond would ask for more. We would ask for more money to be bonded, allow more money to be borrowed than the architect actually needed, than he actually proposed. So I actually asked. I figured, well, maybe he's got some additional scope beyond this proposal.
This is Mr. Cummings. This is the culprit right here,
Can I finish my question, sir?
Yes, yeah. I'm just telling you, he's coming up to answer.
Great. Okay, good. So I asked the DPW director if there was some additional scope. I think that must have been it. That's about why there's an additional $100,000 or so being asked for, being requested to be borrowed. And she told me, no, I was wrong. There's no additional scope. This is the only scope the architect has, this $550,000. So my question is, why would you request more money to be bonded for more? Why would you request to be able to bond more money than you need for the architect? And does that mean that all these other tasks within that $3 million are inflated as well? Do you commonly inflate the bond for, I don't know, whatever reason?
No, but Tim Cummings can answer this for you.
Yes, Tim Cummings, Director of Administrative Services. To address the question at hand, and there's a few points that you raised, I want to just take them one by one. First, to clarify, there is additional scope that was added to that contract, not known at the time, but actually recently we amended the contract once, and I actually believe we might be amending it again. So there's additional design work that is necessary to be able to move the project along. So I wanted to just clarify that one minor point. The second point, and this goes more to the question at hand, is all of those items are budgeted estimates that we get, and we need to have those in advance to be able to, we need to have the bond in advance to be able to enter into the contract with a bona fide source of funds. And so a lot of what we are working with are estimates at the time, and we then obtain the bond. I want to note that just because we get the bond authorization does not mean we actually sell or spend to the totality of it, because we understand that we are working with estimates at the time. Thank you.
Okay, but at the time, that was not an estimate. That was proposal from the architect, from the engineers, $550,000. Did you know at that time there was going to be additional scope?
If I may. No, I didn't.
So again, how did you calculate, what's the basis for the 650? If the only scope at that time, which you had a proposal from the architect, a very detailed proposal from the architect, was 550. Why did you select, what was the basis for the 650? Why did you inflate it to 650?
Okay, if I may, the bond was authored, I'm gonna say 6 months in advance, roughly, and it was predicated off of an estimate that was done by the project manager, who works very closely with the various consultants and whatnot to help develop a budget estimate to propose a budget resolution. And then as time went on, it starts to get more crystallized, more fine-tuned, in which is when the contract comes about.
Okay, so you didn't have opportunity to edit that resolution a couple of days before I went to the Aldermen, or the day before I went to the Aldermen? Because that's when you knew it was 550,000. Several days before the bond was approved.
Yeah. Again, Tim Cummings, Director of Administrative Services. And that's because we want to have some of that excess capacity contingency there, if you will. So when we do have scope that arises, that increase in scope that arises, we are actually able to cover it without having to go back for another bond resolution.
No, sir, you have a line here for contingency as well.
Yeah, that's correct.
So do you commonly do this? Do you commonly inflate the bond?
All right, maybe there's one thing that isn't clear. When the authorization is passed, we don't borrow the money at that point. So it's not like we borrow more, in most situations, more than we need.
I understand.
And when the authorization is made, we might not borrow the money for months or a year down the road. So we have a good cash balance, so we fund the project with cash. And then when we figure out exactly what the cost is, then we borrow that amount. That amount, not necessarily what's been authorized, and we use it to backfill to replace the cash that was used to begin the project. So the authorization is kind of an estimate. We're not necessarily going to borrow that number, but we're not necessarily going to borrow that number, but it's an estimate at the time.
Do I still have another minute? Yeah. I have to say two more things. It seems to make no sense to me. You got a hard estimate, hard proposal at that time.
Well, I'm not looking at all that right now, but I'm just giving you kind of the general approach.
I'm not sure what that means, but okay, one other thing. So don't you commonly manage the amount of money that you bond each year, and has to be, you talk about 20 million or 25 million?
We're trying to average. We're trying to average about 25 million of new debt a year.
So would this bond be, that would be $3 million towards that 20 and 25?
Correct.
Even though you know it's going to be less than that?
No. We don't know it's going to be less than that, but yes, this would be towards the target of 25 million, average 25 million a year.
And to clarify that would be the debt service on what's sold, not the bond authorization figure, just to make sure we're clear on that.
I keep going back to this 3% directive that talked about financial pressures. I think you could bond a little more accurately than that, sir. Thank you. I'm done.
Anyone else for Public Works and Engineering? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to Public Safety Police, which begins in the bound book on 106. Invite anybody up for Public Safety Police Department.
Yes, I had some questions about the body cams.
And just your name and residence for the...
Stephen Scare, East Hobart Street. So, Mayor, I think you said the body cameras were 900,000?
Correct.
Okay, so I'm looking at the budget book, and it has 1,195,000.
I don't know what page you're looking at, but we reduced, the police department had proposed $1 million. I talked with them, and they thought they could do with 900, so we reduced it to 900.
Yeah,
I'm looking at page 10, and that's where I got that number. And while you're going there, as far as the department proposal, it says the department proposed 295,000. So that's a bit different than what you're saying the police proposed.
Well, 295 would be for the current year, would it not? For fiscal '26?
It says 2027. So maybe that was just a misprint?
Well, I think, we talked about this body camera idea after that budget was given to us, so I'd have to look at the details. But in any event, maybe Deputy Kenny can come up. But the body cameras are worth the money. They are, they're not cheap. You're right. They're worth the money. They really improve the police experience for both the officer and the resident. And this new system they're getting, Axon, I think it is going to have additional features that could be added that will do unbelievable things with drones, going to crime scenes, all kind of stuff. So that's not paid for now, but it's a start on a system that could very much aid in responding to calls, which are many thousands every year.
So what did you say, what's the brand that you're getting, the company?
So Brian Kenny, Deputy Chief of Police. So we aren't contracted with a new company as of yet, but we are coming to the end of contract with our current provider, which is that 295 number that you see. We know we're going to possibly the vendor that the mayor mentioned, or any number of vendors which we know are going to be significantly more expensive than that. If we do go to a new vendor, the police department has to deal with a transfer of services. And what that means is we can't just stop the current vendor on today and start a new vendor tomorrow. There has to be an overlap. So that's the discrepancy in the money that you see. We will have to essentially double pay for a couple months for the data that we have saved this entire contract to stay with us into the new contract, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Just to be clear on this Axon, they have not decided who they're going to go with. I'm saying, I think Axon's the best, but I'm not making the decision. They're making the decision, but the new body cameras, whoever provides them, will be more capable than the current ones.
Okay, so is that the company that gave you the number? Who gave where did the estimate come from? Where'd you go shopping to check the prices?
So we've looked at multiple vendors. That would be an accurate number, we think, with Axon, the vendor that the mayor mentioned. But even our current vendor is going to be more expensive in a new contract. So we know it's going to be significantly more, and we are projecting that as a very safe number for us to receive the services that we require. And the vendor we deal with right now is, the mayor mentioned earlier in the presentation, that it is outdated. We have had significant problems with it, so it will be more expensive to have sufficient technology.
Would you please spell the name of that company, Axon?
I think it's AXON.
Okay.
Correct. And we are not under contract with Axon at this time, just to be clear.
And again, this is me speaking, and I do not make the decision. So I've just become aware that the Axon system is quite good, and maybe there are others that are just as good. I don't know, but the Axon is one of the leading vendors.
They are the industry leader at this point.
Okay. I'm a big fan of body cams and of our police department, so I don't want to be misunderstood as being against those. But I mean, let's say if my math is right, maybe I'm a little bit foggy. Say you had 100 police officers, wouldn't it be like $10,000 a camera per officer at that price? You're saying it's the whole system. We're not really talking about body cams. You're talking about drones and what else?
Correct. It's not just the camera, it's the software that's backed up. It's mounts, it's computers. It's not as simple as just having a body camera on your uniform.
Everything gets recorded, so you can, there's a database of everything. So if you want to go back and check an interaction, you can see it, on the camera. It's all saved, so there's a lot of technology, back-end technology.
Okay, about how much does that break down? I don't know how many officers you have. How does that cost per officer?
I don't have the math in front of me, sir. We're budgeted for 182 officers. We're about 9 short right now.
Okay, so then we're really talking about trying to do this in my head, 7,000 per officer for this. Okay, I'm eager to learn more about this system. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Anyone else for public safety for the police department? Seeing none, we'll move on to public safety fire department, which begins on page 112. Questions or comments for the fire department?
Stephen Scare, 111 East Hobart Street. Regarding the fire department budget, and I was trying to figure it out, we have these very charming, antiquated fire alarm systems through our city. And I was reading in the Union Leader that I think the Manchester stopped using theirs. And I mentioned that we're still using ours. Is that correct? The old
Yes.
fire boxes?
Yes, but the chief can tell you the details.
Okay.
I think they find them to be useful, actually.
So first of all, my question is, can you give me a rough idea of how much it costs to operate that system? And also, how old is it? When were those installed?
Steve Buxton, Nashua Fire Chief. I can't give you a rough estimate on what it costs to operate that system because our system is very well maintained day in and day out. A lot of communities that are taking their systems out of service have not maintained them throughout the years, and the investment it would take to get them up to modern standards is not sustainable. Our system has been maintained through the years. It is very reliable, and it is a default for us so that when we lose power, the cell towers go down, all those other things, there's redundancy built into the system so alarms can still be transmitted to the fire alarm office and our companies can be dispatched calls.
And about what year were they installed?
Oof, I apologize, I don't have that on the...
Sometime in the 20th century.
Yeah, it's better than 100 and something years old.
How often are they used?
Very frequently. When buildings are constructed within the city, we require them to put a master box on the building. We have placed boxes in more efficient locations. They used to be in neighborhoods off the main roads. Now, if you look, they're mostly on the main roads. But alarms are transmitted to our fire alarm office utilizing the system every day.
Okay, I'm walking down the road and I see one of the boxes. How exactly is it people using those boxes? How exactly are they being used now?
Yep, so that somebody could pull that alarm.
Does that happen?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Well, you're very welcome.
Any other questions for fire?
Lori Ortolano, Nashua. Just quickly on staffing. Do you have any new positions in your budget this year?
Yes, we have 3 new positions in our budget this year.
And what are they?
There are safety officers, accountability officers. We haven't quite decided what we're going to officially title them yet. They're positions that were taken out of service in our budget back in 2008, so we're actually trying to get those positions back at this point in time.
Are they management positions?
No, they're floor positions.
Okay. And how well staffed are you right now? How many openings do you have? Are you fully staffed?
We just graduated a recruit class approximately a week and a half ago, and we have 3 openings after that. Those members hit the floor.
Okay, and is it typical that you only have a few openings?
Yeah, we hire once a year, typically in the springtime, and by that time, we'll average anywhere between 10 and 15 openings.
Okay. I'm just going to state because of this budget increase, and I know it may not reflect on yours, but the 7.4, it's difficult to bring in new positions this year with this budget. That's just how I look at that, but I'm very happy with the work you do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else for fire? Seeing none, we'll move on to other public safety. Anybody with questions or comments for the other public safety?
My name is Bill Ferrio. My home is number 35 Indian Rock Road. Did you choose to skip over public library, sir? That's fine.
No, I have public library listed after.
Okay. All right,
I apologize if that differs from the agenda posted.
Huh? Okay, all right on. I had a question on page 120, street lighting. So this really applies to several departments throughout in this book. Electricity. You didn't mention it tonight, Mayor, that I heard, but I think recently you talked about how the increase in electricity costs was a high nail.
Yeah, I could have, but I didn't.
You mentioned.
No, I mean, I could have tonight, but I didn't.
You should have. You should have, sir.
Okay.
So I would think that, if it's a large part of the budget increase, you would want to make sure that you estimate that very carefully and very definitively. Okay. I know when I asked this question through one of the aldermen to the school department, they talked in detail about how they had estimated their electricity costs for 2027. Can you talk about how some of the other departments in the city estimate their electricity costs? They don't seem to be very consistent.
Well, we have an energy manager who purchases the electricity. There are different contracts. One for the, as I understand it, one for the school department, one for the city, or at least one for the city.
Okay, great.
And I think the estimates are done based upon the expected use and the rates that are secured as a result of the, the efforts of the energy manager.
Okay, do you remember what that rate was at the city?
The
rate was that you contracted for 2027?
I don't. There are different rates for on the different contracts.
Okay. Different rates between the school and the city, you mean?
Yes.
Okay, I understand the school has different rate. I was asking about the city's rate. The non...
I've forgotten right now exactly what the rate
I tell
is.
you, I question whether it's done very accurately, sir, because this one here on page 120, street lighting. Actuals to date on that line item have been well below the 2026 budget. So it's unclear why that would increase for 2027. I mean, it just doesn't look like there was a lot of fidelity put into the estimate for the electricity.
All right, so which numbers are you looking at?
Well, for example, I'm looking on page 120 of your budget book, right?
Well, I'm looking at street lighting on page 129.
Yes, this is other public safety, right? This is other public safety, right? Okay. Yeah.
Oh, well, I have that as page 118, but okay, yes, I got
So
it.
look at that estimate for 2027, sir.
All right.
525,000. Does that look like a number that was created by calculating the usage times a rate? No, it doesn't. It looks like somebody kind of made up a number.
Well, Mr.
And if you go through all of the...
Yeah, but there are how many thousands of streetlights, and how is it possible to calculate precisely how much electricity is going to be used by thousands of streetlights?
You don't know what the usage was?
I'm sure there's some variance. Sometimes they're on for more hours than other times. It's just, it's an estimate. A lot of the numbers in this book are estimates.
There's different levels of estimates, sir.
Well, maybe, but
You can spend very little time on it.
Do you have an actual?
Or if it's a high nail, it's driving your budget, you could spend a bunch of time on it and come up with something more detailed.
like 527 instead of 525.
I'm going to go back to the December memo that talked about financial pressures. When you have financial pressures, you put some fidelity into your estimates. You go back and look at actuals. You should know what your usages have been for the last 2-3 years, maybe even by month. You should know why your actuals are way below your budget for 2026. You got this high.
I
you
don't,
got this high
you know,
numbers on
I
electricity.
don't think you can estimate, I don't think you can determine to the dollar how much thousands of electricity outlets are going to use during the course of a 12-month period.
Don't you know what you used in the last 12 months, though?
Yeah, but would it be precisely, well, first of all, the rate's different, but sometimes streetlights are out, sometimes they get replaced, you know, a lot of things happen. It's a huge system.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else for other public safety? If not, then we'll move on to the public library, which begins on page 156. Questions and comments for the public library?
Beth Scare, Nashua. I've been observing the library for a number of years. This is the one area of the budget I know a little bit about. I've been very confused about the salaries and the staff hours at the library. What I see is they seem to be, they're not well-paying jobs, but they get a lot of hours. And strangely, if you go there at like 8:30 in the evening on a weeknight, you'll find 2 people at the front desk waiting to check out, and you'll have someone in the teen room and someone in the children's room, even though it's probably too late for most kids. And there's someone downstairs, and it's like there could be easily be more staff than there are actually people in the library at that time of night. And I'm wondering if they're getting more hours to compensate for the low pay, in which case, I mean, it all seems very strange and doesn't seem like a good plan for paying their staff. So I just have been thinking about this for a long time, and I wanted to, you know, bring awareness to that, because I don't know that anyone else has noticed it. And also for the library director, I was just wondering if her pay is comparable to other library directors in the region. It seemed kind of high relative to, you know, what other people are getting paid in the city to do, you know, for other positions like that. So that's my concerns about the library. And also, and where's all this money for moving, for like renovation and moving it? The whole thing. I mean, I've been going to the trustees meetings and hearing how they're gonna move the whole library out, and there's gonna be a new building. And
I believe Director McCormick is here to answer some of your questions.
Thank you. Jennifer McCormick, Library Director. Thank you for those questions. I'm going to try to answer them in order. So in response to the question about staffing at the library, and if you're there late in the evening, it's true. It can sometimes, after 8:30, it will certainly feel like there are more staff people in the building than there are customers at times. We fully staff the building until 9 o'clock at night because our meeting rooms are used and booked until 9 o'clock at night. Sometimes a group will book a room until 9 and they'll leave at 8:20 instead, but we certainly wouldn't close earlier than our posted hours. And for a point of reference, our meeting rooms were used almost 4,800 times in the last year, so that's one of our key services. And this is a good segue to talk about the renovation plans. One of the major outcomes of a library renovation will be more efficient use of space. So right now we are staffing 5 different service points in the building. And at most of those desks, we have 2 people, sometimes only 1. We expect in the renovated building, we'll be down to 1 or 2 service desks for the whole building, and that will radically change the way we use our staff and the kinds of services they can provide. As to my salary, I think my salary is comparable to to directors in other similar-sized cities. Believe I'm paid about 10% less than the Manchester Library Director. Qualifications to be a library director, you are required to have a master's degree, which is a little bit different than maybe some other positions. And as to the cost of the renovation and moving, Ms. Scare is a regular attendee at the meeting, and it feels good to have someone be paying attention and thinking about our renovation. That is all. I think earlier tonight someone used the word aspirational. So the trustees and I have been working since, well, I've been here since 2010, and I've been thinking about it since then. But we've been working since 2022 on a facility assessment and then a feasibility study, trying to identify what library services the community needs and how best to provide them. Our building is not in the best of condition. We are currently working with the admin services director on the next phase of design for the renovation. The Board of Aldermen approved a bond of $1 million last year to continue the design process, but there have been no funds identified or secured for construction or moving. That's all part of the process. And the trustees will start meeting with the Committee on Infrastructure on Wednesday, January 24th, I think is the first joint special meeting. So those would be good meetings to attend to keep up on our progress on design and funding for that. Thank you. I think I hit all the points.
All right, anybody else for the public library?
Good evening. My name is Marina Vaz. I live at 1 Clock Tower Place here in Nashua. I just wanted to echo what Jen is mentioning and how wonderful a resource the library is. One of my community advisory group members spoke earlier tonight. We meet at the library. That's an amazing free space to meet. They have so many more things than books. And not to knock the books, they're great. But they have a seed library. There's so many community events that I've attended there that are wonderful. It's accessible. It has sufficient parking. So I just wanted to echo what an amazing resource it is for our community. And then also I meet with community members who the library is where they can get access to a computer. So those are just very small examples of how our community benefits from the library. The staff is super attentive. So I just wanted to say that. Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else for the public library? If not, then we'll move on to the Community Development Division, which begins on page 160. Anyone who would like to speak to community development?
Lori Ortolano, Nashua. A couple things. I went and listened to the budget presentation by the director, and urban programs was completely skipped over this year. But in the prior year, urban programs was covered. And, there's certainly been some questions raised about urban programs and the distribution of block grant money, lead paint abatement, and healthy home money. But I've also addressed with the board my concerns with staffing and turnover. It's been really high over there. I'm going to say 18 to 20 positions have turned over since 2021. It's a department that appears to have about 38. And when I hear a director say, well, that's because they all move on to better jobs, I don't think that's entirely true, based on my research. So I think the board has to do a little more detailed, in-depth probing into what's going on in community development. I'm not a supporter of the sustainability program and the turbine program. We pay very high costs, salaries for these people. Sustainability with electric rates, that position pays about $115,000 or $16,000 a year. The other one that works turbines pays maybe $135,000, $145,000 a year. These are very high-paid positions. And Fred T. Boone presented information to the board on the turbine program. It showed, and Alderman Dowd was running that budget meeting saying, oh, we get $1 million of revenue. I wouldn't scoff at $1 million of revenue. But the problem is the costs are about $2.8 million for that $1 million of revenue. Manchester's turbine generates $5.5 million in revenue. It's high, and their costs are much lower. It's a moneymaker. It is not a moneymaker in Nashua. And it was put in place by Donnelly Lozo. I probably should not have been put in place, and I don't think it works well. And I don't think we need a sustainability coordinator for electric rates. I mean, it really didn't work out well, but you know, and I'm not green. I mean, my husband ran a green solar business. He's been a businessman for 26 years. He ran a green solar company for 10 or 12 years and sold it off because profitability was so difficult. But he was on the roofs of all these big Massachusetts companies putting up, you know, thousands of panels and doing that work. And I had a solar system on my house in Litchfield. I mean, I'm not opposed to it at all. But if it's not profitable and you're not doing much by way of really lowering rates, then I think that department should be cut. And I'm also concerned about the qualifications of the people in community development when it comes to urban programs and handling these grants. These grants are very sophisticated. They have a lot of complex contract issues, and you have to be on top of them. And I don't think we have the people over there to be on top of them. You know, I paid attention to complaints that were in there. I got information. I paid attention to a whistleblower complaint. And frankly, I don't like what I see. And of course, the individual ended up being terminated, and I'm sure most of you know that. But I don't really like what I see going on over there when it comes to urban programs.
Ms. Ortolano, could we just refocus on the budget, please? We're talking about qualifications of individuals.
Well, these are staff positions that are in there. Like this person who's gone now is in there. I don't see a new position offered to hire for them. I don't know, you know, when we did the lead paint and Healthy Homes grant, I think it was, set to have 7 people working on it. A certain number of people had to work on it. I don't think we have 3 on it now. I mean, that's a problem. And it was a big grant. It was a huge award, maybe one of the biggest in the country. It was huge. I mean, it was bigger than what Boston got. But we don't have the staff for it anymore. So I raise those issues. I think there is, trouble brewing and costs there that need to be looked at. And I don't think the board has paid attention the way it should. And I think overall staffing in the city and turnover is something I've asked the board to pay attention to. And it's not just community development, it's other departments as well. And that's all I'm going to say.
Anybody else for community development budget?
Fred T-Boom, let me pick up where Ortolano left off on the hydroelectric bank. I am kind of interested in it because it's an engineering project. Unfortunately, the person in charge of that project in the city has no engineering background whatsoever. I wrote a memorandum back on March 26th to you, Mayor, to Board of Aldermen, to Deb Kisham, Matt Sullivan. Says Nashua hydroelectric business a big loser. Showed it lost about over $1 million, Mr. Cumming, Mr. Sullivan. And I wrote this memorandum. Nobody responded to it. And, if you look at this, first of all, why is this community development? This is an engineering project that should be probably under engineering, public works, where you have engineers, real engineers. At least the city engineer is a real engineer. Second of all, why is this not a special revenue fund? It's got all kinds of expenses, none of which are shown here. Bond expenses, repair expenses, licensing expenses. This is not a good picture. It is not a complete picture. This Danches should be converted to a special revenue fund. And if it loses money, then either you have to subsidize it from the general fund, which you're doing through these bond payments, and big repairs coming up, and big fish hatchery stuff coming up, you know, the fish agencies, you know, I don't know how you're gonna pay for this. You're gonna have to come with more bonding, more transfers from the supplemental, from the reserve funds, like you did last time, it was a $600,000 repair transfer. But at least a special revenue fund would show exactly what are the losses. And then get rid of it. All you're doing, you get a single customer that's paying 11.3 cents a kilowatt hour. And the whole thing, I don't even know where the revenue $1,600 come from. I presented in this memorandum the rundown of the different revenues based on the kilowatt hours produced in both of these dams. And right now, one of them, I don't think is even running. It's got a blade missing. You got to fix this, Mayor Donches, and you can save yourself $1 million by divesting it. Now, it's going to be difficult to divest because who the hell wants to buy a losing, low-profile water dam, or two of them? They were initially a bankrupt company when they bought the bankrupt operation up in, I think it was Mine Falls Park. Well, one of the two was bankrupt. I forgot which one.
False.
So anyway, can you answer the question, why, A, why is this not part of a special revenue fund? B, why aren't you getting rid of it?
Mr. T.
Well, you know, maybe you're right. We should have a special revenue fund so that it is clear what, you know, what's being, how this is netting or not netting out. I mean, it does generate considerable, they do generate considerable revenue, but, you know, $1.7 million or something like that a year. But you know, the dams are old. We acquired them some years ago, decades ago, really, and the repairs have been expensive. There is no question about it. And you know, like the turbine, you know, to get into all the problems, you know, it's just too much for right now. But there have been a lot of problems, a lot of repairs, expensive. We have to relicense if we're going to have any revenue. You know, if we were to just stop right now, we still owe the money, and we have no revenue. So these things, the licenses, which are generated by FERC, a federal agency, have to be renewed. And in order to continue to get revenue and not just have expense, we need to relicense these things. And the requirements that they're imposing are considerable, like a $6 million fish ladder we've got to build in order to get the relicensing. And that you know, can be bonded and paid over years, but you know, it's a lot of money. But if we don't do that, we have to stop using the dams and we lose $1.7 million in revenue and we still have the expenses. So, you know, it's not a, but I agree with you. Maybe we should have a special revenue
When
fund.
Sears Roebuck went bankrupt, which is a company I once worked for as a part-time kid, you know, they made millions and billions of dollars of revenue, but they went bankrupt. You got to stop somewhere. You got to stop the bleeding sometime. And I'm trying to get you to save some money.
Well,
earlier about how you can save
let's,
save $1 million.
why don't we agree on the special revenue fund so that we can clearly see what's coming in and what's going out?
And also get this transferred to the engineering department where you have engineers that can watch it more closely, that know the difference between a kilowatt and a kilowatt hour.
May I respond to Mr. T-Boom?
Yes.
Mr. T-Boom, I appreciate your opinion that management of a hydroelectric facility is in better care with an engineer. Financial management of a hydroelectric facility, in fact, two of them, is not the job of an engineer, in my opinion. And that's my opinion. You are welcome to have yours. Your revenue numbers are absolutely 100% incorrect that you've presented over and over and over again. And we are going to present revenues when we go to the ad hoc committee to talk about the bonding that will need to be done over the coming years. There's no question that the bonding required for the Fish Passage projects and eventually a Mine Falls turbine replacement project will put the city in a position where it needs to examine whether or not it's willing to run these facilities in the red. The current revenues and expenses from the date that these were purchased by the city absolutely yield the fact that the city is in the black on these investments. That is a fact. We've looked at this in detail. Will that change in the future? Yes, no question about it. And you are absolutely correct. The city will be faced with the question of whether or not it wants to run these in the red or whether it wants to look at an intrinsic value of having two hydroelectric facilities producing 4 megawatts of power that is green power, and whether that has a value above dollars and cents. I've said repeatedly in front of the Budget Committee, the Ad Hoc Committee, that the value of these facilities was always intended to be beyond just collecting revenue. It was intended to be a green power generating facility. And so,
Mr. Sullivan, let me interrupt you. You're taking a lot of my time.
no, I'm not, Mr. Teboom. I'm not taking your time.
I'm not timing for answers.
I'm not taking your time.
Well, you said my revenue values are wrong. On that memorandum, I quoted you. I produced a chart. That chart was produced by your department. Just gentleman, forgot the name, gentleman, send this to me. Okay? That chart shows the revenue. At one point, and you take both kilowatt hours and multiply by the rate that Eversource, who's your sole customer, pays you. And it goes, and yes, at one time, it had 2.4 million. That was back in 2021. That since that time, it's reduced. In 2025, it's 1.179 million. I mean, this thing is not producing 1.6 million. And my numbers are very accurate. If I'm wrong, you better check this memorandum I gave you.
I will be very brief if I may respond.
Director Sullivan.
So, Mr. Teboom, the error in your assumptions and your calculations is the rate that you're using. And Ms. Chisholm and I actually looked at that memorandum that you provided because we took those comments very seriously. But the reality is that revenues have been very volatile from year to year, and I've talked about that volatility and why it impacts the ability to actually run this as an enterprise fund or special revenue. You will ultimately have to subsidize this operation from year to year in the event that we have low flow, aka very little precipitation. And so we've always been very resistant to moving this to an enterprise fund because of the need to go back to the taxpayer to subsidize. Unlike the landfill or a parking fund that has consistent revenue coming in, this relies on precipitation. We simply don't want to have to put the taxpayer in a position to be supplementally appropriating to the fund on a regular basis unpredictably. So we've resisted moving to an enterprise fund. That's my position on that. That's why when asked this.
That's a crazy position.
Well, I appreciate. No, I appreciate your opinion.
That's a ridiculous position.
Okay, thank you.
The purpose of a special revenue fund is to show the fund, not whether it's.
But the revenue is going to vary depending on how much it rains. I mean, so if it rains a lot, the revenue goes way up. If a turbine breaks, the revenue goes down. There's a lot of variance.
And if it's a loser, you get rid of it. Now, there's one other thing.
I mean, I see the point of a revenue fund. I do, so that it would clearly, this year we lost, this year we gained. It would be very evident from the final report of the revenue fund. But Director Sullivan has pointed out what the other side of the argument is.
I think an argument is a ridiculous argument.
Mr. Teboom, you're at the end of your time. If you could just wrap it up.
One other thing, while I think about it, you've had time to think about it. Would you direct Dawn and I to answer my questions on the spending cap?
Can you send the question? Have you sent the questions?
Yes.
Yeah, well, we haven't had time to talk about it. We will look at the questions and.
Otherwise, I'll see you back in court.
Probably. We'll see you in court either way. I mean, some people never stop suing.
Any other questions or comments for the Community Development Division budget? Seeing none, we'll move on to the budget for Public Health and Community Services, which begins on page 128.
Beth Scare, Nashua. I read the public health newsletter every month, and it's wild, the stuff she puts in there. It's lots of DEI, climate change, transgender crap, and I'm just very concerned. I mean, hopefully this is contained to the newsletter and her whole office isn't run like this. I mean, last year in this newsletter, she advocated this department lobbied against bills to ban puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones for children.
Ms. Scare, do you have any budgetary related
Yeah, well,
questions?
I just want to, I'm just concerned what this office is spending all this money on. It's, if it's anything like her monthly newsletter, I'm very concerned that we are blowing a lot of money on ridiculous stuff. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comment or question for Public Health and Community Services?
My name is Bill Ferrio. My home is number 35, Indian Rock Road. I had a question on public health budget. On page 130, there's a list of FY27 objectives. There's a bunch of bullets here. I wanted to ask about the third one, if I could read this. It says, effectively operate a low-barrier winter warming station, an all-season resource center. So the question I had was, it's unfortunate, it doesn't look like the resource center is going to be in service July 1st. So can you tell me how much was budgeted to operate this all-season resource center? And did you plan it to start July 1st, or would it make more sense to plan it for later in the season, later in the budget season, when there may be another opportunity to develop a resource center, Mayor?
If you look at if you look at the list of changes which we proposed to the Budget Committee, you will see that we suggested that they reduce or eliminate the staffing costs for the Resource Center because the decision was made not to proceed. So you need to look at the list of changes.
I didn't have opportunity to see that. Was that made public, sir?
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Okay, all right, my apologies. How much was that budgeted for? How much was the budget for that?
177,000.
Okay, great, thank you. That's all I had.
Lori Ortolano, Nashua. I just want to talk about positions in public health. It seems to me we've grown the positions a good bit over the last maybe 3 years. And I think it's position heavy. I think there's too many employees in the public health budget, and it could be reduced. And I know that's a difficult concept or thing for you to consider, but I think it's something the board should be looking at more closely, the value of each position and what can be done to reduce positions in the public health budget. That's, how I feel. I know some are grant funded. As long as the grant is being administered correctly and you're getting what you think you're supposed to get from that grant funding, that's fine. But there's also usually some overlap, in the processing of grant fund money through the city. There's some services that are used. But I would ask the board to pay attention to the number of staff positions in public health, and you as well, and consider if every one of those positions is vital. Thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions for the Public Health? Seeing none, we'll move on to Education, which begins on page 215.
Okay, this is the big one. This is the school department. First of all, I'd like to say that the school made a presentation to the Board of Aldermen, which was an outstanding presentation. Very good one, much better than the cities. And it had the salaries. It didn't present it there, but if you look at the school Board of Education, you find the salaries listed. It's in a PDF sheet, and it takes a while to decode it into Excel, but I was able to do it. Now, if you look at the school, they're asking for a 7.37% increase. If you want to know how much money that is, that's $14 million. If they went by the guideline of 3%, they would get 5.7 million, a difference of $8 million. $14 million increase over last year. The school department represents 53.4% of the operating budget. And it represents 41% of the total city budget of about $501 million, if you take everything into account. It's a very large budget. And so this one, I kind of started looking into the details. I didn't micromanage and the other stuff. I'm glad, Mr. Andre, that you're there. So one of the things I looked at after I decoded the salary PDF is I found you're on top. But you're on top by a percentual margin. Your salary from your own spreadsheet is $197,940. $197,000. You're not as high as the police chief and the fire chief. They make more. But your next highest paid guy is a guy named Matthew Poskar, who's the assistant superintendent. And he makes $140,800. How do you justify a $57,000 difference between you and the next highest paid guy in the school department?
Mr. Posca deserves more money.
$140,800.
Yeah. He's, if you do a comparison of our salaries across the state of New Hampshire, we are not in the top tier. We're not in the top 5.
I'm talking about here.
No, you asked a question and I'm answering your question. He deserves a higher salary.
Why? Why $50,000 more than the next highest paid guy?
Because that's my contract and that's what I negotiated. And I said, Mr. Posca deserves more money and we can negotiate that.
So the Board of Aldermen.
If I can add before we hop, I think to Dr. Andre's point, if you actually look at Manchester, which is the comparable school district, the superintendent and assistant superintendents are probably actually not making what they should be making for a district of this size.
They should be making more?
They absolutely should.
Well, it's up to the Board of Aldermen to cut your bottom line. They can control your salaries. But I advise them to cut your bottom line by about, well, what did I say it was? A $14 million increase, cut it by $2 or $3, $4 million, bottom line. The next question I have is, you have a fellow called Assistant Superintendent ACA. What in the devil is that? What does he manage?
Do you have a name? Because I'm not sure who you're referring to, sir.
Matthew Poskar.
Oh, so that is the assistant superintendent. So at the school district, we have Dr. Andre as the superintendent, and then we have 2 assistant superintendents. Yep. One is over elementary and one is over secondary.
Okay, what's ACA stand for?
It's probably an abbreviation for assistant.
I looked it up. It's superintendent of transgender and non-conforming staff.
No.
No?
No.
That's what ACA means.
No.
So you must be looking at a position code based off of the PDF that is posted on the website.
Okay. Now you have a director, let me get next up. Director of CTE, which is Career Technical Education. You have a director of TEC, which is Technical Education. You got a director of STS, which is Safety, Transportation, and Security. I'm not sure what all STS totally stands for. But you have at least 2 directors, high paid. One guy is paid $129,900. The other guy's paid $116,300. Why have you got 2 technical directors?
Yeah, sir, I'm not sure what position you're actually referring to. Again, I think you're looking at our job coding. So the job coding doesn't necessarily reflect the position.
Okay,
do you have a name?
Tian Caliccio.
None.
No,
So,
I'm sorry.
Tian.
Helion Telbo is one, the CTE.
So Helene Talbots is our CTE director.
Yeah, and Gregory Rodriguez is TEC. And why have you got 2 technical directors?
So we have one CTE director, and then Tion is our civil rights coordinator.
Is your what coordinator?
Civil rights coordinator.
No, I'm talking about Gregory Rodriguez.
So the position for Greg is actually the IT position that was listed. That position is being eliminated based off of the presentation earlier. We are moving into a shared resource with the city.
Okay, you're getting rid of that position.
That is accurate.
All right, that's good to hear. There's a civil rights COR, Tian Calicio. What does he
Tion.
do?
So Tion, that is the individual that I just mentioned. She is our civil rights coordinator. She works side by side with our HR department, a lot of HR investigations.
Why do you need a director for that if you got an HR director?
Due to the number of claims with nearly 10,000 students and 2,000 employees, there's a lot of complaints that come in around discrimination, Title IX cases that need investigation.
And between you and the HR guy, you can handle that?
Absolutely. This position is absolutely needed.
Robert Chiopia is director of STS. What is that person do?
He's the director of ELL. He's a director of English language learners.
Don't you have a director of special education?
That's a different department. We do.
And you have a different director for SPED and a different director for EL?
Absolutely. So we nearly have over 2,000 ELL students and 2,000 special education students. Our director of special education, you can see the rising costs. So there's a lot of oversight and liability in that department. And then, as you know, over the last 4 years, we were under a DOJ settlement agreement because we were not providing enough ELL services. So his position, a director of ELL, is absolutely needed.
You know, one of the problems I have with EL, being a foreign language entry myself, is you got a Vietnamese student come in and the EL teacher doesn't speak Vietnamese.
It doesn't, ELL does not necessarily mean a foreign language.
I mean, American is an EL? Somebody speaks English?
With all due respect, sir, like there's a lot of criterias and regulations around ELL. I don't want to belittle your comment, but there's a lot that goes into ELL services.
Well, there's a lot that goes into all of these positions.
Absolutely, and there, yep.
Now, let's talk about your attendance.
Mr. T-Boom, just before you proceed, you're at the end of your time.
Over the 5 minutes?
Yes, sir.
All right, I have some more comments for the school department.
We've been pretty lenient. If you could wrap it up, please.
Mr. T-Boom, as in our emails, anytime that you want to come in, I'll be more than happy to have a conversation with you.
Well, when I came to this country, there was no such thing as EL.
No.
And everybody spoke pretty damn good, pretty damn fast.
And any further for the education department?
Lori Ortolato, Nashua. I just want to talk about buildings. I didn't make the meeting on Thursday because I was ill, and so I watched it from home. And, you know, my take on the issue with our buildings and the management of our buildings and usage of our buildings is that we had a study done, I think it was 21 or 22, by a gentleman who produced a report that said we have too many open schools based on enrollment. And it was pretty detailed and laid out the reasoning why. And then we paid $400,000 and we had Harriman come in and do another study. Excuse me, I'm still recovering. And, you know, they came up with the same issue that we have too many open schools. And they presented a lot of these models of what you can do in closing. Personally, I found it to be too many choices. There were a lot of choices in there. So trying to parse through the choices was difficult. But I just want to express my disappointment with the Board of Aldermen and the Board of Education in not addressing this more timely. I think we know what we're facing. I think with the report that was done 4 years ago, we knew what we were facing. And I think we should have had this budget reflect schools that weren't going to be open next year, that we were going to redistribute kids, as painful as that is and difficult as that is, we have to move in that direction. And, you know, the future of numbers still shows decline. And we're kicking the can down the road and drawing this out to be a 6, 7, or 8 year problem that we have to deal with when the costs go up and the circumstances change. And, you know, I think this required more expedience from both the Board of Aldermen and the Board of Education to deal with the buildings. And that is my criticism. I appreciate the reductions you've made in staffing, and I understand that a lot of your staffing reductions don't come down more because your special ed issues are through the roof. And that is a big problem for the school. But I'd like to see McCarthy Middle School, which is pretty underutilized, consider doing something with special ed programming in there, or using it for, you know, another part of the school to make it more efficient. I don't know. We've got to figure out how to use this space more effectively for our kids and reduce the cost to the taxpayers still delivering services. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else for the educational budget?
Sharon Giglio, 29 Taschereau Boulevard, Board of Education. I just want to speak to a few issues that have come up relative to our declining population, which is absolutely true. However, the students that we now have, as the previous speaker mentioned, have greater needs than any students we have ever seen before. That includes our ESL or ELL students. It includes our special education students. It includes fragile students. It includes students that have disabilities and need to be accommodated appropriately. And I think that us even having to take a 56 or 57 job cut was extreme. Part of the problem is that people, since COVID, apparently, are just not coming into education as a career. So a lot of our expenses have to do with the fact that we can't just hire all of our regular paraprofessionals and pay them on our regular scale. We have to pay through a contract to an outside agency to get enough people to offer the services to our special education students, and that is extremely costly. And if there's anyone here who would like to go into education or have children who would like to go into education, now is the time. We need you. Our students deserve everything we can give them. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Regan Lamphere, and I'm at 237 Brook Village Road, Apartment 4. I'm on the Board of Education, actually the chair of the Finance Committee. So I work pretty closely with both Mr. Gray and Dr. Andrade, and the amount of work that they do to run these schools and to keep our books looking the way they do, especially in this year that was so challenging, was incredible. And they are important to the school. And Dr. Scarpati is as well, our assistant superintendent, and our other people as well, the ELL services and the director of special education. This is what we need to take care of children. This is what we need to provide a good education. And so it made me a little bit upset to hear anyone disparaging these people, because they have devoted their lives to caring about our kids. So I just want to correct the record. Thank you.
Chesley Marvin, 10 Marion Lane. Although I did expect maybe a proposed budget of a little bit less than this for the schools after attending all of the meetings and hearing all the struggles that were happening, I'm happy to see that it's not like a, complete and utter 3% destructive budget proposal. But just speaking as a parent, I have 2 kids. One is 4 and one is 2.5. They're not yet in the public school system, but they will be soon. It is really disheartening, even with the amount of funding that they're going to get, that they've had to make such steep cuts to staffing. And as we know, the staff are the most important part of our schools, among other things. And it's also a very stressful climate. I'm zoned to New Searles, and their name has come up in multiple conversations about closure. It's it's hard to imagine what's going to happen in the next couple of years and where my kids are going to go to school. And it really makes me consider, what am I going to do? Am I going to stay in Nashua with my young family, or am I going to move us somewhere else where the schooling situation is less volatile? I'm not sure where that place is, but I know it's a struggle across the state and across the country. I just wanted to, I guess, speak to that. What does the budget, I guess, is a representation of what the city of Nashua values. And even though we have an aging population in the state, I think it's worthwhile to still invest in our schools, even if we're down from our peak enrollment, right? I don't think we're that far down from what our historical enrollment trends are. And if we could historically support all of these buildings, let's maintain them, let's invest in them, let's invest in our communities. I think it's really important to put our money where our mouth is. If we care about families, if we care about kids, if we care about bringing people to the state, we will fund education. Thank you.
Anyone else for education?
My name is Bill Ferrio. My home is number 35, Indian Rock Road. I had the opportunity to listen to you present your budget to the Aldermen, I don't know, a few days ago. You both speak very well. You had a whole mess of slides, but the biggest takeaways I got was on the first slide before you presented any numbers. You said a couple of things. You said that you encouraged curiosity. I remember that. I wrote that down. That's a good thing. And you said that you encourage the difficult questions. That's a good thing, too. And you said that we are all learners. I remembered that. Okay. So I have a couple questions, please. On page 215 of the mayor's budget, there are 2 line items for transportation. Huh? I know you talked about how you considered combining routes, bus routes, for some efficiency. And you said that didn't work. That didn't seem to be an advantage. Did you consider adding an additional start time?
So we are investigating that. We had conversations with the charter schools, because we run 4 different tiers, but some of the complications is the start times with the charter schools as well. So they did not receive or notify their families early enough to change their start times. So we did consider that, but we would be looking at potentially start times, not this September, but the following September, once we can balance out the number of routes that we would need. But that is a future consideration of looking at moving start times.
So that's not in this
Not in this year's budget.
Okay. Can you estimate what you think the savings might be?
It depends on when we run the calculations and what the, how many runs we would need. One of the bigger complications is the number of special education buses. And that's what a big impact was at the time was the location of McCarthy Middle School. And the time that it takes in between the high school run to get to McCarthy and then McCarthy to the elementary schools. And that's been causing some delays in our buses. So once we can actually iron out of how many buses that we need, I think we'll get better data to see if we need to adjust start times. One of the complications with the start time is the impact that it has on our late school. So if we move, like our late schools, they currently get out 3:30, 3:45. So we would actually have to move their start times to later, where our elementary students might be getting out after 4 o'clock. In a straw poll, that was not met well. Or the high schools are starting earlier. So they would be starting before 7 o'clock in the morning. And that's not a good alternative either. So we need to kind of balance out the number of buses that we need and look at those efficiencies. So we have looked at start times.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah.
The next thing I wanted to ask you about was you talked about difficulty in filling the unstaffed positions. And you talked about how some positions you plan to fill as contract positions, and and some you plan as full-time. How do you decide for each open position whether to budget it as a full-time position or a contract position?
You want to take this one? I can
Yep.
take the
Yeah, I will.
OT-PT.
Yep. So of course, the primary focus would be to go ahead and hire these individuals on our own. We want more staff as Nashua School District employees. As you probably saw during our budget presentation, we're not seeing staff go into these positions. It's not just us here in Nashua, other school districts are struggling with it as well. So the primary focus would be to recruit these individuals on our own, but at some point, a decision does have to be made that if we cannot find this talent on our own, we do have to have a teacher or paraeducators with these students. We cannot have them coming into school on day one without a teacher in the classroom. Once we've exhausted all of our staffing resources, whether it's recruiting, trying to go ahead and have employee referrals, et cetera, we will have to go ahead and do a contract service. So there is money set aside in contract services, usually about 10%, but again, our primary focus is to hire these folks on our own.
And more specifically, our OT, our occupational therapists, and our physical therapists that provide services to our students. Historically, those have been hard to fill positions, so we need, let's say, 20 OT and PT people. We've been only able to hire, say, like 8 in a union position. So a lot of those positions year over year are through contracted services. So we know that going into the school year.
I understand what you just talked about the difficulties in hiring and the difficulty in placing, getting full-time employees. But the question was, how did you plan it? Did you plan that of all these open positions, you're not going to be able to hire any full-time people, so you put all the budget into contract, or is it some blend? Or
Yeah, so as I mentioned, it's a blend between wages and a blend between contract services. So most of the positions, as I mentioned, you'll see sitting in full-time wages. And then there is money set aside for contract services to hire these positions as well.
And to your point, we look at our trend data, so year over year. So we look at 3 to 5 years of are we able to fill those positions.
okay, so it sounds like what you said is most of the open positions you budget as full-time employees as opposed to contract employees. Okay. Is it possible that you may have double budgeted for the same position?
No. So here's the challenge that we run into is this year alone, we are contracting several positions, and we're going to spend almost $8 million in contract services this year. So when we budget positions and wages, we can go ahead and move wage money to offset some of that contract service cost, but it's not a one-for-one ratio. Most of the time, we're paying double or triple the cost that it is to hire an employee, plus we cannot touch the benefits. So there is no way in our budget that we did I think what you're referring to as a double dip between wages and contract services.
Okay. The open positions that you plan for full-time employee, do you plan those all to start July 1st? Do you
No.
plan that they're going to full-time, you're going to hire everyone July, all the open positions are going to be filled July 1st?
No,
Or
so
you
our,
scatter them through the year?
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
I'm done. I said,
Okay.
do you plan them all the open positions, you plan them all to be filled July 1st?
So our school year actually doesn't start until August. I think we as a school district would love to see everybody hired as of July 1st. So when we pay our teachers and most of our support staff, it's actually August through June based off of the salary that you're seeing. So the positions are budgeted as if they were starting in August.
August through June.
Correct.
And when you talked about your experience, your history with that, do you typically fill all the positions by August?
We do not.
Okay. But you plan it that way?
Yep, I mean, that is our anticipation to go ahead and hire everybody. Again, we need teachers and support staff in front of our students. But as I also mentioned, if we do not hire these individuals on our own and we have to contract service them, then we are able to move the wages into contract services to offset some of that cost.
So for any position that you don't hire by August, you automatically fill it with a contract position?
No, I wouldn't. I would say automatically is not probably the right wording we would use. We as a district would look at a contract service, but it would be on like a 30, 60, 90 day. And again, we are recruiting up until the last day of school to fill an open position.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else on the school budget?
Gary Hoffman, 38 Perham Street, Nashua, New Hampshire, Townhouse D. If you want to save money on education costs, I recommend everybody speak to their legislators. If we had state funding of ELL services and special education services, we bring back the old interest and dividends account, cities like Nashua that are disproportionately shouldering this cost, we would certainly benefit. I mean, last I checked, Manchester and Nashua alone had over 60% of the English language learners. Were providing a great service to the state, welcoming these newcomers, these New Hampshire residents to our state who, you know, we have an aging population. This is a good thing. But the state should be covering these costs. Vermont, our neighbors just a little bit to the west, they do that. And we can follow that model, and we wouldn't have this or these sorts of things. And, you know, there's other problems with the way we fund special education in New Hampshire. I attended Able New Hampshire's forum that they did at the library a couple weeks ago, and a woman from Merrimack said that, you know, she has a child who's disabled, and she told me that when she moved to the town, one of the residents told her, said, you should be paying quadruple taxes because you're costing our town so much money. You know, that was a horrible thing to say to that woman. And if we had state funding, these sorts of conversations wouldn't be happening. This should be a burden that our entire state is funding. We should be, you know, and there'd be a much more fair system. We wouldn't be talking about these sorts of things. We should do this as a state, not have individual towns and communities shouldering this burden. Thank you.
Hello again, Stephen Scare, 111 East Hobart Street. Please pardon the digression. I need to correct you, Mayor Donchis, on something you said earlier. You said the fire alarm system was installed sometime in the 20th century. Chief Buxton looked it up, and apparently it was 1886 that they were installed.
Well, I was only 1 century off, so you got it.
So something that my question about special ed services and contracting, I need some clarification on page 216. I'm trying to get these numbers together. In your presentation, Mayor Donchis, in your slide, I think you said we were looking at a 51% increase in contracted special ed services, going up to 1.8 by 1.8 million. If I look at the bottom of page 216, where contract services are listed, it lists $4,024,466. That would be a little less than $1 million increase and a 31% increase. And I just heard you say 8 million is what you're looking at. So I'm trying to put these numbers together. What's actually budgeted for contract services for next year?
Yeah, so let me add some clarity. So budgeted for contract services, I'm seeing it on page 214 on my side, but 53628 is contract services. In totality, it's just over $4 million. That roll-up is contract services as a whole for the school district. That's not just special education contract services. That portion of special education contract services, I believe, is about $2.5 million in that line item. Okay. For clarity, your $8 million that heard me say just a few moments ago is actually what we anticipate to spend this year for fiscal year '26 on contract services.
Okay, so help me out a little bit here. So the figure here, which is a bit over 2 million, I'm making sure I'm looking at the right one, for the little over 4 million.
Yep.
That's strictly for special education contract services.
That is not. So contract services on this appropriation detail is contract services as a whole for the school district.
Okay,
So anything related to like IT services, any other contract services that we as a district will do, we're anticipating that budget to be right around $4 million.
Okay, so where am I looking to see the contract services for special ed?
So I believe,
Line item is that?
yeah, in this specific budget, you're not going to see a breakdown for what the exact amount is going to special ed. On the school district's website, there was a more consolidated presentation that Dr. Andrade and I presented, and you'll see exactly how much is going to contract services related to special education. And I'd be happy to send you that link and that document as a follow-up if you'd like.
That sounds fine. So you're talking about 8 million for this year.
Yep.
And then are we looking at a 51% increase for next year?
I don't want to say that those figures are wrong, but the 51%, in my opinion, sounds a little high.
Okay, because
So
my math is right, that when we're talking about going up to 12 million. I spoke at a school board meeting and I expressed concerns about having enough special ed teachers, and I think you addressed that a little bit tonight. And I suggested if someone works for a special education agency, the agency is taking half of the money, how it works. These people aren't making a fortune. So why are people preferring special ed teachers and other service providers? Why do they prefer working for the agencies over working for the school district? And I'm wondering if that's something that you've looked into, because ideally we're going to have kids serviced by employees in the district.
I mean, it depends on, there's different reasons why certain people work for an agency over a school district. One might be just the rate of pay. A new teacher might be working for an agency that comes in at a higher rate than what we offer in our union contract. So we see that with BCBAs or different positions, that the market demand is higher than what's in the union contract if they come in as a step one teacher or a step one BCBA. So it might be the market rate where someone prefers to work for an agency over a school district, or their contract might be, again, higher wages and they don't need benefits. So there's many reasons why people choose an agency over working for a school district.
I have some experience in this, and I'm going to suggest again, the biggest draw for the agencies working for them isn't higher wages, and you don't get the fancy benefits. It is, they will say, we're going to hold you to 40 hours. If someone works for a school district, there's no limit that a special educator is going to work. And it might be worth talking to the special educator teachers from that. It's not a job that many sane people would want to take, as beautiful it is to work with the young people. So I suggest checking with your special ed staff and saying, is this an entirely manageable job? What would make it possible for you to do this? And maybe everything's ducky. Maybe I'm wrong. We talked about facilities in schools. Someone's going to be really upset if you close any school, but the students will be better served because you'll be able to allocate the resources better. So that's someplace I hope that you move. Also I'm a big proponent of school choice. And I'd be concerned about maybe some of the money and the students fleeing the district. I've been working in a lot of different schools, different types of schools over the years. The reason parents aren't sending their kids to public schools is they're terrified of gender ideology. You have teachers here that believe a girl can be a boy. and
Mr.
they're
Scare,
avoiding the school.
Mr. Scare, this is not relative to the budget at this point. I'd ask we keep it to budget lines, please.
It's why you have empty schools. It's relevant. People are making choices to go out, and you allowed a member of the public to talk about people going out because they had tax vouchers so that they could go somewhere else. Why are they going somewhere else? And based on the groans in here, you're not going to address that problem. So thank you for the opportunity to speak. I hope that you have good luck recruiting special ed teachers.
Anyone else for the school department?
All right, Alex Samola, Nashua, New Hampshire. Is that better? Okay. All right, short people problems. There we go. Alex Samola, Nashua, New Hampshire. I just want to ask the question, I guess, when someone, whoever, the city, stops caring about our children, and stops taking care of our children, who's going to take care of us?
Anyone else for the school department budget?
Beth Scare, Nashua. My concern is Lou Jurish did get to talk about school choice, about why he's against education freedom accounts. Stephen can't say why people are using education freedom accounts. That's totally unfair. But also I want to ask, if a kid does use an education freedom account, how does that hurt the school? Doesn't the superintendent, doesn't the school get to keep, they lose a kid, they don't have to educate the kid, and all they lose is a few $1,000s from the state aid, correct? Is that not true?
It's not that simple, if you want to.
Well, can you explain it to me then?
So I'll start and then Dr. Andre can hop in. So if a student does go ahead and take one of the vouchers, the state adequacy aid does follow them. So we as Nashua would not receive that funding.
Right. But then they don't have to educate the student.
However, the expenses to operate a school does not go away. So if we lose, say, 100 students, right, across K-12, qualify or use the EFA accounts, right? So that's, call it $400,000. We are not taking a bus off the road. We are not laying off a teacher. We are not turning off any lights. We are not making any cuts, but we lost $400,000 in revenue. So that is a cost to the school district. There's a loss of revenue. However, again, we lost 100 students, but we didn't consolidate. It's just a loss of revenue.
So if Alderman Gregg sent her child to Bishop Girton, that's the same effect to the school district.
The schools that individual alderman students go to is not relevant to the budget.
Okay, let's say anyone in this room sent their child to a private school. It's the same effect as an education freedom account. It's the same loss to the school.
Again, I think there's still a cost associated.
There's an additional loss, which is that some would advocate that those funds that go to the private schools should be devoted to trying to improve overall school aid. I mean, we've already talked about how we're 50th in terms of school aid. Were the money going to the vouchers directed towards the public schools, we could increase that a little bit. And so there is that loss.
But isn't there a matter of what, I mean, does the school think about why are kids leaving? Do you look into it? Do you talk to the parents?
Yes.
And what do they tell you?
It depends on the family and the situation.
And are you putting out any kind of reports about that?
We haven't put out a public report, but we look at why families leave all the time.
I mean, it just seems to me like if the schools are as wonderful as everyone is saying, parents would stay. Why would they leave? It's convenient. I mean, I would have loved to send my child to the neighborhood school. It was just a couple blocks away. but, you know, it didn't work for us. And I see a lot of families dealing with the same thing, and I think it's really unfair to beat up on school choice when families have needs for their children that aren't being filled at our public schools. Thank you.
Anyone else for the education budget? No, Mr. Teboom, you've already had your opportunity.
Rob Johnson, 70 Weathersfield Road. I would just like to thank our schools for being open-minded and welcoming to all students.
Mr. Johnson, I have to extend the same request
Yes.
that you keep it to the budget.
Yes, thank you. So one thing about the budget is, and it's one of the things that we have a concern about, is our playgrounds. It's something we have to look at for future, that our playgrounds are, especially when you look at like Lead Street, are worn down, and we want to make them more available. So that's something for future budget considerations that will look at those playgrounds and improving them. Thank you.
Anyone else for education? Seeing none, we'll move on to the Financial Services Division, page 100.
My name is Bill Ferrio. My home is number 35 Indian Rock Road. I had a question. I had a question about a line item on page 99, the revenue item called interest income. It's about halfway down the page. Mayor, can you explain what monies are being invested there, what it's invested in, who's selecting the investments, and why that revenue has been underplanned for the last several years?
The city has, you know, quite a bit of money in the bank, and typically those funds are bank CDs. We don't really have much latitude. We don't have legal latitude, nor do we want to, buy any kind of risk assets. So, I mean, we can't legally do it either, but even if we could, we probably would not. We're not putting money into Bitcoin or something like that. These are bank CDs.
Okay, so it's a very low risk.
Zero, well, we consider it to be zero risk, but I suppose.
All right, zero risk, guaranteed income.
Correct.
Almost. So why would you underplan it several $1 million every year?
You've also raised the issue of why the automobile revenue is, and this is a similar thing.
I'm still on this one, sir.
I know, but it's similar, so I'm going to answer them both. They're both the same reason. The automobile revenue is estimated lower than we think we're going to get as well, and that is done intentionally and has been done that way for, I'm going to say, decades. I mean, I think this was when I was an alderman, is like in my 20s. I think it was the same thing was happening, and the reason is this is a conservative approach towards budgeting. The one thing that we never, ever, ever want to encounter is a deficit. So this is one facet of the answer. So by underestimating revenues, we make sure that at the end of the year, the books are balanced and we typically have a surplus. Now, you have also asked the question, a valid one, well, why, if you were to accurately, precisely predict revenues, wouldn't you then have a lower tax rate? The answer is that these surplus revenues, for example, the surplus revenue that comes from the automobile registrations does go to the taxpayer. For example, at the end of the last fiscal year, fiscal 25, we had, several $1 million of excess automobile registration revenue, which came to us in the form of surplus. But we devoted $6 million of surplus to buy down the tax rate. So although it accomplishes the same thing, and it gets us security regarding the, you just make sure that we never, go in the red. And one final point, the rating agencies, and we do have a AAA bond rating, they like this. They like a conservative approach like this. So this isn't the only reason we have a AAA bond rating, but it contributes to a strong financial picture, which the rating agencies appreciate. And the benefit of that is we pay lower rates when we borrow money.
Okay, you mentioned burning down or buying down the following year's tax rate. I understand that. I don't remember the figures exactly as you do, but I seem to recall it's only a percentage of that surplus that you use.
Yes, but but I'm just saying that the amount that we use to buy down the tax rate, that number, $6 million, was greater than the amount of surplus generated by the automobile registration. So in a way, so we are, basically devoting the surplus generated by the automobile registration, the low estimate. In the end, at the end of the year, that goes into the tax rate.
Do I have another minute, Mr. Senate?
Yeah. He doesn't, my long-winded answers, he does not count that against you. So you've still got some of your 5 minutes.
Are there other revenue sources besides these two that you commonly underplan to build surplus?
These are the big ones. Not really. Like sometimes other revenues come in higher than estimates. For example, there is revenue that comes in the area of community development, but it's more variable there. Because, it has to do with how many people apply for building permits and all that kind of stuff. So I'd say that these are the two main things. When it comes to the direct question regarding the interest, the automobile registrations is pretty predictable, but
Very predictable.
But the interest revenue is a little different because 1 year, we made $500,000. Next year, $3 million, based upon the fact that these, the Fed and all this stuff that goes on, the 10-year bond and all this, those interest rates vary. So sometimes we get very little on a CD, other times we get more. So sometimes those rates can change early in the year or in the middle of the year or late in the year. And so we can't absolutely predict interest rates as accurately as we can predict automobile registration.
Are there specific expenses that you commonly overplan to build surplus?
I would say no. No.
Okay, I'm sad. Thank you.
Anyone else for financial services?
Lori Ortolato, Nashua. Just quickly, I think our financial service office was more transparent some years ago when it came to getting information or accessing people in the office. And that has changed a lot in the last couple of years. I noticed, so I think financial reports, Right to Know law was created around financial reports, the need for people to see information. So I think the financial reports are really important. The accessibility to those reports is really important. I noticed some new interface was put up when you try to look at some of these reports that asks you, what do you want? And what are you looking for? And you click so you can get assistance. I don't know where that came from. and it's almost like it's being turned into a right to know to look at financial reports. I don't really know what it is. You know, stuff happens on the city website, like when Next Request got launched, it just happened. And all of a sudden, boom, your requests come in a whole different format and you don't even know what it is. Create a password, push a button, and you don't know how to filter, you don't know how to do anything with it. So it's not helpful, and you know, I would encourage, and I'm gonna say, the lack of transparency, I really feel rests on the shoulder of Director Cummings. He's the one who's stymieing all of this. And that has to change. I mean, you talk about litigation and you shouldn't go into court and all this stuff. The reason like Fred T. Boom's up here and you're doing that is because information is so restricted. And what you get in court is an opportunity to ask questions or have a dialogue that you never get in the city. You know, consider the transparency issues. And I think financial reporting is not as transparent as I'd like to see it. Thank you.
Well, I won't go into detail, but I disagree with basically everything you just said.
Anyone else for financial services? Seeing none, we'll move on to debt service, contingency, and interfund transfers, which are beginning on page 221. Seeing none, we'll move on to capital improvements, capital equipment reserve funds, or SURF, which is on 224. Okay, and seeing none, we will move on to administrative services, which begins on page 56.
Okay,
You got a pretty good.
where's Mr. Cummings when we need him? A question for you, Mr. Cummings. Aren't you the Director of Administrative Services these days? Aren't you the CFO these days? Aren't you running the city these days? Question, Mr. Cummings. I'm looking at all these departments. And I already mentioned the school department was the king of the increases of 14.15 million. But they only asked for 7.37% increase. You, on the other hand, had the temerity to ask for 16.47% increase. When the mayor, I don't know how the mayor let you get away with it, but he asked for 3%. That means you asked for $3.2 million increase, rounded off. How the devil do you explain that?
Again, Tim Cummings, Director of Administrative Services. I think what I will say just in brief response to those comments is I'm not sure that that's 100% accurate depiction. What we had occur, particularly in a couple of the departments, and I'll just say buildings and grounds as one of them, where we moved money from one operational department budget to another operational department budget. Library as an example. We had some of the building-related expenses from that operational department budget move over into buildings and grounds. So it's not necessarily new dollars added to the budget, but it could certainly show the administrative services budget increasing, more so because there was a decrease in the library budget.
I'm not talking about pennies, Mr. Cummings. I'm talking about $3.2 million, 16.47%. The number is very accurate. It comes directly off the spreadsheets of the budget book. Nothing inaccurate about it. It's down to the, I can give to you the penny. You asked for $3,199,809 increase, 16.47%. The mayor proposed 22.627, when before, last budget, 19,427,517. I hope that's accurate enough for you. So what's the answer?
I believe I just answered your question.
No, you didn't answer. You said there was some stuff moved around. I want an answer. Why'd you went up 3.199809?
All right, but there are elements in here that we've covered already. For example,
Benefits.
the insurance costs, non-medical insurance costs are within the administrative services budget under risk. Risk is up 25%. And or more. And there is money in there for liability insurance, which is going up considerably. There's workers' comp, that's going up considerably. There were some changes made at the state level regarding I'm not disagreeing with the change. I think it's valid, but for example, the new legal approach is that if a firefighter gets cancer, the presumption is that it's job related. That was never true before. That adds costs. Again, I'm not saying that is because a firefighter has much higher cancer rate and they encounter carcinogenic agents in the course of their work commonly, and in fact, the protective clothing that they wear has carcinogenic, to protect them from the heat, has carcinogenic agents in it. And they're trying to develop protective clothing now that would not, like PCPs is really what I'm talking about there. It's in the clothing. So, we just had a firefighter die of a cancer, and she wasn't the only one. So anyway, that was done by the legislature, and so that's going to increase workers' comp costs, and that line goes up.
I'm talking about administrative services.
Well, this is within the administrative services budget. It's the risk budget is within administrative services, risk management.
How much did that go up? Risk management?
So the risk management budget went up from FY26 adopted 8.7 million to 10.4 being proposed now.
So what's the difference?
About 20%, about 2.
How much, dollar-wise?
It's about $1.7 million, $1.8 million, somewhere in there.
Just about 2 million.
$1,000,007?
$1,000,007.
Increase.
So that $3.2 million extra is
Just 1.7 has to do with just this insurance issue and the kind of risk issues that are involved. Another thing is an employee, at least one employee was transferred in here. We are often criticized that we don't take proper care of buildings and that they deteriorate. So the idea here is to kind of consolidate building maintenance, and therefore the personnel from the library that did their building is now under administrative services in an effort to more effectively manage building maintenance. So there are things here that are increasing beyond the control, of the administrative services director.
I didn't look at the details, I admit that. I only look at the top level numbers.
Well, and that's okay, and so I'm not arguing that you did that, and fine, but I'm giving you some of the reasons.
Well, it's a very large increase in one department.
Mm-hmm.
It's the biggest increase other than the school department.
Thank you.
Gloria Ortolano, Nashua. How fully staffed is assessing now for positions? It did have 9 positions at one time. Where are we at staffing in there? And I know we have a part-time chief. Did we budget for a full-time chief?
No, we have a contracted service for the chief assessor. And we have, I believe, 1 position that is open right now, an administrative assistance position.
So there were 4 administrative positions, so there's 3 right now that are filled?
Yes.
Okay, and there were 4 assessors. Do we have all the assessors?
So I believe we have 2 full-time assessors on staff right now, not counting the chief assessor.
Okay, because it was 4 plus a chief, is what it used to be. Do we fund for those additional 2 positions?
Through a contracted service.
Oh, so those are contracted, those other people that come in and help out, okay. Have you given any thought to moving the right to know administrator from administrative services to the clerk's office for record distribution? And why are you so intent on keeping the right to know administrator in the administrative services office? What's the benefit of that?
If I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Director Cummings?
Thank you. Again, Tim Cummings, Director of Administrative Services. I'm not so sure that I would actually say that I'm intent on keeping the position in Administrative Services. So I wouldn't go that far. Actually, what I believe and what I would recommend, and I've been talking internally about, is actually creating its own department. And this Department of Record Management actually could be handled in a way where, yes, there could be some aspects with the right to know, coordination, facilitation needing to occur, but then there's also more where you could have an archivist and preservation of records being done, which certainly comes more traditionally out of a clerk's office. And I think we could have a little bit more of a hybrid approach to our records management system, as we recognize that we need to preserve records and take better care of them, storage and retaining records, and how diligent we are in doing that is an administrative burden that we sometimes don't prioritize or resource as well as we probably should. Moving more towards digitalization. These are all services that we should be providing at a higher level. And it's an idea that has been circulating in the back of my mind for a year or two now. And over the coming year or two, I'd like to raise that as a potential way to better provide a service to the community and enhance the service offerings.
Okay, so that was an unsatisfactory answer for me on a number of levels, because the right to know administrator is here and now. I don't really want to know that you need to grow it to another position or archivist. Manchester has an archivist. They're very hard to find. When I go to Manchester on a right to know request and I go through the archivist, I'm hard pressed not to get an answer back in 15 minutes, literally. It's lickety split, okay? That guy is so on top of his work. I'm talking about making a right to know administrator who everything is funneling through him, who is sending all these responses, more responsive and accessible to have discussions about records. I can have a discussion with Mr. Dowd and Keene. He's awesome. He's quick. Again, I asked for a CD. He mails it to me in the US mail and I get it in under 5 days. So this stuff is very fast. And, we're not seeing that kind of responsiveness. The other thing is he keeps flex hours. He's not available. There's no office hours listed. If you go to the door, he's not in. Nobody knows when he's going to be in. That doesn't work for somebody who should have a public interface. So I'm not supportive of the position. I would encourage the city not to keep it anymore, because I don't want to hear it's going to be another 2 years. You've had it for 3. And what are you doing to improve the situation with records? You launch a new software program and don't even tell us it's happening. And that was a difficult software program, really difficult. That software program doesn't give you the answers to your right to know requests. You end up in this litigation issue because you have no communication. And I don't think that hiring a communication specialist is going to fix that. I really think it comes with management and the people you hire. They have to be willing to talk to the public. Just case in point, Fred T-Boom was talking about his record he put out to the Board of Aldermen on hydropower and turbines. And we learned that, community development director and Deb Chisholm talked about it and said his numbers are all wrong. No one got back to him. Why didn't you get back to him? So he's not standing up here. You had it for a month. Get back to him. I know he would have met with them, but nobody does that. So it's too closed a door. That position has not worked. It's created more liability than benefit, creates more questions than answers. And I think it's really been a bust. Go back to the departments handling it. And I'm not a big advocate of next request. There's a lot of problems with it. Tried to address it with the board. Nobody's really interested. That's fine. We'll address it with the court. But, that's a problem. Thank you.
So if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Director Cummings.
Thank you again. Tim Cummings, Director of Administrative Services. There was a couple items mentioned there that I feel I need to respond to, particularly because some of it was a little inaccurate. First, I want to make sure everyone knows that we did a soft launch of the new software being open, this Right to Know software, and called Next Request. But then, once staff got a little bit of a handling of it, and once we were starting to use it, we offered a training to the public. And we encouraged the public to attend. We offered individualized training. So we are trying our best to try to make it user-friendly. And also, I want to note for the record, this Next Request software is a national type software. It has a wonderful reputation. It is a name brand. It is not something that the city of Nashua created, or it's a mom and pops type of endeavor. It's something that's utilized across the country in an effort to be responsive. I'll close my comments by saying, unfortunately, due to the treatment that has been received by the previous speaker, I don't know if any Right to Know coordinator, no matter what office they're housed in, would be as accessible. And that's because of how she has communicated, and in particular, the amount of litigation that gets imposed upon us. It is too much of a risk. We have too much of a liability when we have one-on-one communication. We often find that communication gets distorted. So it's better for us to communicate in writing and make sure that we have it memorialized appropriately, just to protect the city. And no matter where that position is housed, I believe you'd see the same type of treatment. And then my last comment, there are certainly more things that we could do in terms of service offerings. And I know we're focusing on the written record, and we're talking about that record management type system being done in a little bit of different way. But another aspect of again, just providing a higher level of customer service, a lot of communities offer 311 type systems. And it's something that's in the back of my mind, and I've often asked the question, has the city of Nashua grown to the point where we offer a 311 type system? It's a service enhancement. I don't know if we can afford it, but when I hear a community asking for a higher level of service, which is what's being asked of us right now, we have an obligation to look at it, and there will be a cost associated to that. And if that is what this community is looking for, we're something that we can study and develop a plan and bring back to the community leaders, whether it's the mayor or the Board of Aldermen. But what I want to leave with is the comment of saying, I hear you, and we can certainly look at some of these service enhancements and adopt them in future budgets. Certainly nothing I've talked about right now is in the FY27 budget, and I apologize for going a little bit off the record.
Anyone who hasn't spoken yet on administrative services? Seeing none, that concludes our departmental hearing on the fiscal 2027 budget. Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to make the motion to table.
You get to speak one more time.
I apologize. Yep. We do have a period for additional questions. I would ask that this be kept to questions relative to the fiscal year 2027 budget. I know we have lost some directors. They may not be here to answer your questions, but we will do the best to accommodate. Please keep it to a timely fashion and one per turn. Thank you.
I have a follow up to the school department. I tried to do it while it was still here, but you said no, so no.
We had established one per department.
Well, that's what's kind of a dumb system. No, they're here. I have a question. I didn't want you to come all the way back up here and go through all the exercise. But you've been here that long. I asked them to stay over. Okay, the one question, Mr. Gray, it was when we talked on the phone, I said, I liked your presentation, but the one thing you left out was the administrators, not a word. Now, it turns out that you said that you have a staff of 2,055, and your teachers are 958. So you have a non-teaching staff larger than your teaching staff of 1,097. I suspect some of them are part-time from the spreadsheet I saw, but not too many. So is there any reduction planned in the non-staff teaching? Non-teaching staff.
Can you repeat your question?
Okay, so you have 1,097 non-teaching staff, and you have 958 teaching staff. You talked about reduction of the teaching staff. I think,
It's on this slide.
well, they're reduced by 11 teachers from what I see here. No, maybe that's 26, 27.
Yeah,
there's a
so
reduction.
there's a reduction of about 58 positions this year. 23, we'll pull up the slide, but it's about 23 teachers, about 20 paraeducators, 2 administrators, and we were proposing a few secretaries. We are not cutting the secretaries this year, but it's a combination of teachers, paraeducators, and 2 administrators.
Okay, so you're cutting, how many teachers are you cutting? 30?
There it is, 21.
21. Okay, and non-teaching staff?
So 18 paraeducators, 2 technology instruction assistants, 5 instructional coaches, and 4 administrators.
So 4 administrators, that's all?
Yes.
And why is this? You've got more non-teaching staff than teaching staff. Like I said, 1,000, it's almost split, have 958 teachers, staff, and 1,097 non-teaching staff. Why aren't you cutting more administrators? And you didn't report on this in your briefing.
So why not more administrators? Because
Yes,
I feel,
non-teaching staff.
well, the non-teaching staff also includes plan ops, custodians, paraeducators, clerical. So there's a number of different areas other than, we do not have 1,000 administrators.
I understand that.
Right, so I just want to be clear,
That's
like.
not the question. The question was,
So-
why aren't you cutting more administrative staff?
Because we feel that we have the right amount of administrators at this time.
Well, it's my opinion, you got far too many administrators. And the bottom line is up to the Aldermen. And I said they should cut your budget by about, in my estimate, by probably around $4 million.
Yep, thank you.
The other point I want to question is number of students. You gave us a very nice presentation about the last 12 years of history in your presentation. And the number of students, there's almost 2,000 less students over the 12 years. There's only 33, that's 2,000 students, that represents 17% reduction in the students, almost 20%. The teachers changed over the 12 years, a reduction of 33 teachers total, which is 3%. So there's a lot less students than teachers. Now, if I look at the regular teachers, then you have regular students, and you have SPED students, and you have ELL students. That's how you broke it down. And the regular students are down by 3,302. That's the regular students. 3,302 less regular students. But you got 379 more special education students. And you got 936 more ELL students. It's a phenomenal number. ELL has just gone up like crazy. But the special education is also going up. Now, all of a sudden, what's happening to our population? I mean, I'm older than 12 years. I've been around the city almost over 50 years. Is the population just getting dumber? Is the population just getting...
I think that's not accurate. That's so insensitive to our student population.
Then explain why special education is up 379 students.
Because for a student to qualify for special education services, there's a number of assessments that need to take place. So students qualify for special education. It does not mean that they're, I don't even want to repeat that. No, yeah, because the need of the students keep on going up. So the student, why is that? Yeah, because these are the students who are residing in Nashua who qualify for special education or ELL services.
Why does it keep going up?
Because those are the students who attend our schools, who qualify for those services.
And why does ELL keep going up by 936, 83%?
Because those are the students who reside in the city of Nashua who qualify for ELL services.
Are we overqualifying these students?
We are not overqualifying our ELL students. And quite honestly, where we got in trouble is that we weren't identifying enough ELL students. And so over the last 5 years, we've increased the number of ELL teachers, and we are still not satisfied on where we need to be for the ratio of the number of ELL students to the number of teachers. So at one time, and this is, again, we had over about 2,000 students and only 30 ELL teachers. Do the math, that's one teacher for every 65 students in ELL services, and they require anything from 1 period or 2 periods a day for a direct ELL education.
Were you here? You were not a superintendent. We had a special school in Amherst Street. I forgot what we called it. Mayor Donches, you probably remember what it was. I forgot the name of it. But what was that?
Mr. Teboom, you're at the end of your
Most
additional
special
5
education
minutes.
Students went to that school, and at much lower expense.
More kids that come in speaking another language. I mean, that's it. It's just, that's the way it is. If you see the languages spoken in the schools, the number of different languages, it's astounding. So there's more kids that need to be taught English.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, we welcome the diversity in all of our classrooms. I think that's a privilege and something the city should be celebrating, is the wider range and in the diversity in our community.
All right, does anybody else have any final questions for any other divisions?
All I can tell you is...
Mr. Teboom, you've exceeded your time.
And I didn't have an ELL student teacher.
Gloria Ortolano, Nashua. Quick question, and I don't know where this went in the budget. We pay the rent to NPAC for the Art Center. I think it's up to about $700,000 for next year. I don't know what budget that's in. But we also start the unwinding of the new market tax credit next year. And I actually believe in this budget cycle that unwinding will begin. I know I talked to Keene, and they spent the better part of like 10 months unwinding their new market tax credit. So when we unwind, does the rent that we're paying to the Art Center go away? We had like a 25-year schedule.
Well, we get an offsetting distribution, so it's basically a break-even situation.
Right, so but the impact won't be there anymore?
If the transaction is unwound, and it's not mandatory, but maybe it's advisable, but when and if it's unwound, yeah, all those interrelationships would be ended.
Okay, perfect. One other thing regarding the software that Director Cummings corrected some information on. I went to the training that was done, I think, on March 9th.
Ms. Ortolano, is this going to be a budgetary question on the software?
Well, he
We're not
talked
here to
about what he's going to do with the software, and he talked about the training he offered.
Right,
and
but we're
then
not here to
individual
discuss the training or the utilization.
Okay,
We're here to
so
discuss the
say-
fiscal year 27 budget.
Okay, so within the budget, I've asked this board 2 years ago to take the right to know log of everything you log and put it on the website, so everyone knows what material's been given out. That is so simple. That is not a technology nightmare.
It's not that simple, given, what, thousands of right-to-know requests. I mean,
Spreadsheet. He keeps an Excel spreadsheet.
I don't,
I mean, it's an Excel spreadsheet. Why can't you put update the Excel spreadsheet every 2 weeks? He sends it to me. I file a right to know and he sends it to me, but I have to file a right to know for it.
Do you have any budgetary questions related to any other departments?
I feel I should be able to counter what he told the board in the meeting.
This is not a session for debate. It is a session to discuss the budget.
Well, why didn't you stop him when he gave those comments? Thank you.
If nobody else has any other questions for any departments, that will conclude our departmental review. Alderman O'Brien.
all right, I guess we did it.
Are we sure? Okay, if you're sure, Fred. Mr. Chairman, I would like to make the motion to table R-26028 by roll call.
You really want it by roll call?
I really don't, but it does say it. Can we do it?
We don't need it by roll call. The motion is to table. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries. Alderman O'Brien, do you have one more motion for us?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a motion to adjourn by, a motion to adjourn.
Motion is to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned at 10:41 PM.